Welcome back, everybody. We're going to have the after show for the Godless Engineer and Christian Anarchist discussion on Jesus, man, myth, God, and a few other things that we had talked about, but we didn't get much opportunity to really dive into because obviously that discussion was not about some of the philosophical aspects where there was basically, did Jesus exist? And if he existed, was he the Son of God? And I want to start just real quickly on record to say that I thought you guys brought very good A games. I thought you guys had a great discussion. It didn't devolve into some screaming match. I think that you both stayed on point for 2 hours on this topic. And thank you guys so much that you didn't spend 2 hours talking about Josephus. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But anyways, we got a little after show. We got Kyle, we got Ozzy, we got John, we got Hunter, and we have Christian Anarchist. Anybody else who wants to come in, just let me know. I'll give you the link. I also invited Rags, maybe he'll drop by. But what do you guys think? I'm just gonna turn it right over to you guys because I said I thought it was a great discussion. So
I second that.
Yeah, I'll third it. I thought it was a really good discussion.
All right, let's go home now.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I had disagreements with people on both sides of it, and I agreed with some points on both sides. But I mean, I thought the caliber of the discussion was good. It was on topic. It didn't devolve into second guessing people's motives or anything like that, or ad hominems. I thought it was terrific. It was as highbrow a debate as you're going to get from people who are not actually professionals in this area, but that are just sort of interested lay people and have done some homework on the subject. I thought it was very good
too. Actually, I think, and none of us are professionals at this, and they are not professional debaters. But the fact that, like what you just said, they gave principle of charity. They didn't assume, oh well, you're just lying about this, or you're just trying to deceive me, or what kind of rhetoric are you doing? They took each other's arguments at face value, and I think that's a quality thing to have in a high level discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's hear from the men themselves.
Yeah, how do you think you guys did? Any self-assess, and how do you think your partner did?
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I love having these kind of debates. I love being able to flex, my own general knowledge. And I had notes, pulled up, but I really didn't have to reference them too much. There were a couple times where I did, but for the most part, I mean, I just had fun having the conversation in general.
What about you, C.A.?
Well,
I expected it in more. And by the way, thank you for the $10 super chat. I enjoy your content, NA. And it says thank you very much. We appreciate it. And by the way, the super chat and the Patreon for the Not Second show, definitely appreciate Kyle's, especially the hard work that he does in these graphics. You guys have no idea. He does a lot of graphic work, and they're exceptional.
I like how I got shades in that entire thing.
Yeah, I decided to go with I guess with shades on.
Nice.
Okay, so go ahead, Christian Anarchist. What did you think about tonight?
I'll say this much: for a mythicist, he definitely had me surprised a little bit concerning certain things. Because normally, when I've engaged with some of these people, they, of course, I'd still say, there's definitely a lot of far-stretching things that he had brought up. At the same time, he was knowledgeable on a lot of stuff that not too many people know about.
So would you say he's not the Kent Hovind of mythicism?
I would still say that. Well, I don't believe I say that about him. I think there's something that's still off when he, like, for example, the whole Ignatius gospel thing. But I'm not going to say that he's I don't think he's the Kent Hovind of mythicism, though I still disagree with a lot of what he says strongly, but I do think, ultimately he's able to provide an argument and, hold his own in a debate. And I think that's what's important.
I agree. Yeah, you don't have to agree with him, but the fact you acknowledge that he brought a good discussion and a good argument, that's what we're looking for.
Well, one of the things that really bothers me is when I get told that I am a creationist or I'm a Kent Hovind. Like, I don't know, that really gets under my skin because I feel like I come at this from an evidential perspective. Like, I have evidence to support what I think in the points that I make. And however wrong you might think that I am, at least I can express what I'm thinking about it clearly and with evidence to support it.
I think they say that though to get under your skin. You know, I don't think that anybody really thinks that you are in any way, shape, or form the Ken Hovind of anything. I think that's solely just to troll you, you know, to get under your skin.
I don't see anybody attacking your knowledge level. That would just seem foolish to me.
Right. And plus, I haven't really seen much of your videos until I had heard of I didn't even know who you were until the debate happened between you and Inspiring Philosophy, and I've been studying the topic, and then, you know, then I kept hearing what people had said about it. So I had always been curious and trying to do a debate with somebody. But the one person that I remember would try to do the debate said he would do it as long as I don't bring up the Gospels, Josephus, or Tacitus. I have to use other things besides those texts.
I think that's an unfair condition. But I never said you can't use them. I just said I don't want to spend 2 hours talking about those.
Right. But this guy wanted to do it under these terms. I don't want to give away the names, but he's had 2 people, including me, come across him about it, and he's not done the debate as a result of putting those kind of limitations.
What
you know what that means?
What?
I'm just saying he probably doesn't have that strong of a argument.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
Who
not.
do a better job than John did as far as providing an argument on these things. And it's like I said, it's one thing to say, hey, somebody such as us might have a bad argument in certain things. We all do. But it's quite another to say, oh, they have no knowledge on the topic. Clearly, he had an exceptional amount of knowledge on this topic, because I was blown away.
Well, what I'll say about Christian anarchist experience, I think that's a very poor way for somebody to really act towards this particular topic, like saying, oh, you can't use these particular topics in your discussion, because I feel like if you're gonna be a mythicist and stand by the position that you think that Jesus didn't exist in history, then you have to be able to have that evidence to say why certain things don't convince you or are wrong or whatnot. So I think limiting the conversation to specifically, you know, what you want to talk about, or specifically these particular pieces of evidence or not these pieces of evidence, that's just setting somebody up to not really fail, but it's like setting somebody up to have a disingenuous conversation.
Yeah, it's more than that. Like, not only should you be prepared to argue the things that your opponent thinks are the real reasons, but those things that you named, right? the content of the Gospels, you know, the Pauline epistles, Tacitus, Testimonium Flavianum, and stuff like that. Those are the very things that the people who believe in the historicity of Jesus think count as the best evidence for the historicity of Jesus, right? So, I mean, why would you not want to tackle and debunk, as you see it, the very evidence that your opponent thinks is the best evidence, right? It seems to me that anyone who wants to debate this should be fully prepared to debate those things, since that's exactly what a historicist about Jesus's existence thinks is so compelling in favor of the historicity of Jesus. So, well,
from what I've heard, from what he said, that basically he said that he was just tired of talking about a topic. Like, he kept saying it's a proven forgery, move on, and kept tired of having to discuss it. Like he said, if I've already discussed this too much with people, I'm not discussing it with you. Move on to something else. Show me something I haven't seen, kind of thing. Was ultimately what he was trying to get across.
Yeah, but
I love having this conversation. I don't care how many times I have to repeat my evidence. I will do it.
I think Ozzy in the same boat. Ozzy, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw you say something along those lines that you never get tired of this discussion, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, actually, it's funny.
By the way, hello, new guys here.
Yep.
Yes, hello.
Mac, thank you for your support to me.
Yeah. Fresh meat.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Welcome aboard.
These two are very fresh to the community. Mac has actually been a friend of mine on Twitter for quite some time. He's been trying to get his sound system working, so let's do a quick check with him. Mac.
Yeah, do you guys hear me?
Yes. See, it does work.
Oh, there we go.
And then Jammy's new to the community. He can introduce himself. You know what? Tell me your thing, dude, Jamie.
How's everybody doing?
It's all, decked out and sued and everything.
Yeah.
I got
sharp. I got a call
with
with China later tonight, so.
Nice.
Nihama.
I got to brush up on Mandarin as well, just like my Spanish.
Nihama and will I need. You know what that means?
Can I have a beer and where's the bathroom?
Close enough.
Okay.
Basically, no, that's how are you and I love you. That's what else you got to know.
Okay,
I would have believed
people
the
who
other
speak
two,
Mandarin, and here I feel my IQ is not at a high enough level to be in this hangout right now.
I've eaten Mandarin oranges. Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Jamie, go ahead and
introduce
yourself.
Steve, you were asking Ozzy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, let Jamie introduce himself to the community because he's probably going to be sticking around for a while.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join aboard the Brain Trust, I guess. I started noticing the videos on YouTube about a month ago, and specifically the Non Sequitur show, and it was right up my alley. I kind of joked with Kyle and Steve earlier when I introduced myself the first time that I started noticing friends and family discussing, what's this thing about people believing in a flat earth or, this or that. And I kind of just connected one video to another. You know how Google's algorithm works where they can suggest videos to you. So fell in love with the format and just wanted to be a contributing member.
That's awesome.
Well, we're glad you are, and we're sorry that your family's having to deal with flat Earth too. Nobody should have to deal with that.
Yeah. I don't know how anybody could actually look into a group and go, "Hey, are these people really talking about flat Earth? Really?"
Godless Engineer is actually a really good debunker of flat Earth too. So if you haven't checked out his videos on that, you really should, because he's on point on that too. Don't you just love him, John?
Yeah, I feel like I'm trading baseball cards with friends, because it's like I meet Steve's channel and then Kyle, and now I'm introduced to Godless Engineer, and I'm going, wow, these are great. I gotta keep following these guys.
Don't forget this guy.
That's the way it works. The domino type of thing. That was the whole point of, like, when we were doing the Great Debate Community. It's just that everybody kind of knows everybody else, and you kind of go from one thing to another. Oh, you don't want to watch this channel? Go watch this channel. It's okay. As long as you're providing some content and people being enjoyed, and that's it. I like people being entertained.
It took me a while to find the Great Debate Community because I had it wrong. I had it as Mass Debate Community, and that took me to a whole nother area of Google.
Oh, dear Lord.
They're master debaters.
That community as well.
Yeah, we did. Somebody needs to start that. Do it, Mass Debate Community.
Well,
although it sounds like mass.
There is a mass debate thing, but yeah.
Is there?
Oh
well,
listen there.
Concerning me for
on that now. Remember, your mom and grandma.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying mass debate or master debate?
You can take it any way you want.
Because when I hear mass debate, I think of Roman Catholicism and Protestant debates, which were
that's not what I think of.
Of course you wouldn't think. Of course you wouldn't think of that. Especially I'm in the room.
But John, you were getting ready to say something about the flat Earth thing. What you want to tell your
Oh yeah, well, I mean, my most popular video on that particular subject is getting on up to 700,000 views, and that's right after the Falcon Heavy launch. I had the genius idea of like going into the flat Earth groups and seeing what they were saying about it, and turns out like they were making up a whole bunch of like crazy things about explaining the Falcon X Heavy and how it's just a government shield program, or it was filmed on a soundstage with a green screen and stuff, and it's ridiculous. The
funny thing to me, or the best moment ever, I think, on YouTube this ever happened was with Debbie, when Reds was showing her a video of of a rocket launch, and her rebuttal to it was, "That's not a rocket; it's a bottle rocket." When it's clearly not a bottle rocket.
Come on, you don't think there's a little Poe in her when she says things like, "Oh, that's not a rocket; that's a bottle rocket." Really?
Okay. You never know. I mean, like I said earlier, when you think that you've heard it all, when Godless Engineer came with that verse that was on that scroll, that just hit me out of left field. I mean,
I don't know.
It's pretty graphic for a
Gostin, did you want to do a video debunking if that's a ball or rocket or not? I don't know if that would fly very well, but man.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to have a conversation with Debbie or another flat earther because I'm genuinely interested in like how, like why and how they believe this stuff. I mean, I can assume that they just come at it from like like I'm not gonna trust like what people are telling me kind of thing. But I don't know. I just find it interesting to talk to people that have those kind of opinions.
You know, Kyle is typing in that in his phone right now. Debbie, get in here.
Look. Whether you hate her or love her, I'm not convinced that she genuinely believes that the Earth's flat. However, I think that for what role she plays, if she is playing a role, she does a job. She could win an Academy Award, I think.
I think
based on the level.
I think he's just nuts.
Yeah, and in all seriousness, off air, she's wonderful. She actually got, if you remember the Bigfoot guy that we had on here several Sundays ago about the we do some things on Sundays where it's not based on religion. We kind of go outside the realm and look at people who have really different ideas and just a different mindset about things. And we had a really great guest on Bigfoot. Now, whether you like Bigfoot or not, it's still interesting to hear. You know, I mean, you may think that they're completely out there, which I agree. I mean, I don't completely either, but it's still fascinating to hear. And she actually set that whole thing up, you know, so for as much as she gets on our show, she hangs in there pretty well.
I think Ozzy and Debbie would be a fascinating discussion, wouldn't you?
I'm just lamenting Ozzy, that I missed the Bigfoot. I'm lamenting that I missed it.
Oh, he was great, actually. I mean, I think he was batshit, but I actually liked what he had to say as far as, you know, at least he was able to articulate a position that I think is completely wrong on. But he was a nice guy. He was very amicable. I liked him.
It's always interesting.
Very interesting.
I'll have to go and look for that.
Allen something? David Allen? What was his name?
Alan Thomas.
Alan Thomas, yeah.
I'm going to look for that. I've always been fascinated with the issue of Bigfoot. I live in Canada. I do a lot of camping. I bump into people every once in a while who have like Bigfoot stories, and it's a frequent topic of conversation in the sort of the camping and bushcraft forums that I frequent. And Bigfoot is sort of my go-to example of a belief that is ridiculous, and it's an analogy I use in connection with why I'm an atheist. Same kind of reason why I don't believe in Bigfoot. So it's uncommon for me to actually see conversations in the skeptical community with people who believe in Bigfoot. So I'll have to look for that. Thank you.
You will. The story runs straight at him. Like from the mountain, he watches Bigfoot come down, and it's 12 foot tall, number one. And it comes right at him, and he tells the story about what transpired prior and what happened after. So you have to check that out. It's on our.
I think he's actually believed he saw something, or he may have seen something that he's just attributing to Bigfoot. But I don't think he's fabricating these stories.
What do you guys think about the idea of? And again, I don't know this individual, so I'm not at all accusing him of this. But there's the idea that a lot of these alien abduction stories, I had a confrontation with a Sasquatch, is really a cover up or like a mental block for like a molestation or a rape situation, or something like a sexual regret.
They're transposing.
Well, I was going to say the description he gave was actually really close to the description I would give a bear. Like,
it probably was. I think
some of it was really exaggerated.
That could be.
It was hyper exaggerated, but it was like a bear.
I think he saw something, but he just and he said he used to do drugs. So, obviously I think something was compromised.
It could have been anything,
right? Yeah, but as far as that regression therapy, that was big in the 70s and I think early 80s. Wasn't it, Ozzy? If you remember back then, where they were trying to like relate all your spheres into something trauma that happened to your childhood, so they would take you back and regress you back to your childhood, try to relive through it and push through it or something.
Yeah, a lot of that.
People had died by some of that therapy.
Yeah,
They would wrap them in, they would wrap in a carpet or something and simulate the birth.
Yeah,
They thought the birth was traumatic and people would suffocate.
Yeah, that went on in the 70s. Yeah. It spilled over into the early 80s, actually, regression therapy and stuff like that. Yeah.
You don't remember
There's a lot of stuff
about rebirth therapy?
By the way, guys, if you know anybody that is what's the name of these people that sovereign? I really want to do this.
Sovereign citizen.
Yes, we want a sovereign citizen. If you're out there and you know or are a sovereign citizen, meaning that you are your own independent country and you don't have to abide by the laws here in the land, please contact us. I don't know if well, I guess you can do whatever you want because you're your own country, right? But I would love to have this debate on our show.
Do we not, Jamie?
Yeah, it's funny because I just ran into one yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So
did you give him a card? Did you tell him come on in? Say, hey, you got to do this, man. Check it out.
He didn't have internet. He said he's back on his rent and paying he's got to get his water and electric turned back on. But once that's first steps first. But I used to chair for a nonprofit that had to deal with a lot of political issues, and one of them obviously was Second Amendment. Every once in a while that would come up, and there was a lot of SCs that would come into the meetings because they were open to the public, and after the meeting they would come up and ask me a million questions, like what do I think about how automobiles are actually not commercial vehicles and that kind of stuff. So I'd love to have dialogue.
Traveling, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. What you guys need to find is a Mormon that thinks that I believe it's Esau is Bigfoot.
Oh, dude!
Yeah, I heard that. I mean, I heard that one, but I don't even when I was Mormon. Nobody.
No,
we
need to find a Black Hebrew Israelites.
But anyways, we have Shannon in here. You guys need to acknowledge her presence. You're supposed to go, "Hi, Shannon," when she enters the room.
Oh my goodness, that's interesting.
Because we had this like 10-man misogynistic thing going on, so lady enters the room. By the way, Shannon,
which I'm perfectly fine with. By the way, for the record, I'm perfectly fine with.
I forgot we have Kyle in the room.
I opened the door.
No, I was saying.
But did you guys watch her?
I heard Hebrew Israelites. Let me touch on that real quick. I don't want to, although that would be an interesting platform. They spew so much hate and just bigoted stuff that I don't even want to give them any whatsoever. Like I don't even want to acknowledge that they exist.
It depends on the ones you usually get because they have different camps.
Who is acknowledging it doesn't exist?
The Black Hebrew Israelites.
What?
The Hebrew Israelite.
Oh, the Hebrew Israelites. Oh yeah, a bunch of nutters. But anyways, Shannon, your video was good. So now that you made the first one out of the way, you're done with it. Production value was superb. When do we expect that?
The production value wasn't me. That was Paul.
I know. I wasn't giving you credit for that. Sorry. Is it out? Credit is due.
It's out. Yeah, I put it out yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I did it. I was talking
all that stress is lifted off her shoulders. She's de-virginized on YouTube. She's an official YouTuber now.
I know, even though I've been on all. Hi, what, Kyle? What's up?
We have requests that you and KC come on to do another similar thing with what we did last night. So
I'd love to do that. I love KC. KC's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to do something?
That would be
with you. We haven't figured out what would be the topic, but we're going to arrange something like that. Sure.
We'll just make it up as we go along.
Said that she loves you too, Shannon.
Aw, love fest. Godless bitches. Where's my tank top?
I love it. I heard that you
damn it.
You got hate for that.
Joshua says, "Are you guys going to discuss?"
I'm waiting for the hate.
Topic?
Who's supposed to get hate?
I'm waiting for the hate to come in from the Satanists that we're having coming on because Shannon. I alluded to it earlier, but Shannon had him on their podcast a couple of months ago, and I guess it's the stigma that goes along with it. But Shannon got a bunch of hate for.
Yes, it was bananas. I am an anti-theist, a public anti-theist who posts constantly about, atheism and debates Christians and theists online all the time. And I've been on over 50 either streams or been a contributor to multiple atheist YouTube channels. And never have I seen anything. I get around. I do. I get around.
Yeah, and pass her around the channel. Here, you have Shannon tonight. Oh, you take her tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Well, no, actually, I pick. People don't get to pick for me. I pick
That's true.
myself.
That's a good point. You know, you have your autonomy. We don't make your decisions
That's
for you.
right.
Kyle,
But-
Kyle,
Fuck
when
the
you-
patriarchy.
Kyle, when you get
Fuck the
Satanist
patriarchy,
on,
Zach.
Kyle, when you
Jamie?
get the Satanist, when you get the Satanist preacher or pastor or whatever, when you get him on your show, what you have to do is get the soundbite from Dana Carvey on Saturday Night Live as the church lady, where he goes, "Is it Satan?"
That's a good idea, actually.
Real quick,
That's a good idea.
Joshua, who is a Hebrew Israelite, by the way, says
Writing
that
it down.
hang on. He wants to learn new information. He says, "Are we going to stay on topic for the video description?" Probably not. The after shows tend to have a complete divergence from the actual, topic that we have. It's just what happens. We did talk about it a little bit initially for the first 5 minutes, then we kind of go into other things. But he's welcome to come in. I have no issue with that.
Who are Black Hebrew Israelites?
Well, he would be best to explain that because he is one, isn't he? So.
Yeah,
Is he going to make me mad? Should I leave?
Have you ever been mad?
Well,
yeah.
I'll
Yes,
just simply
she has,
sum it up as
actually.
there are a bunch of people that believe that African Americans aren't actually African Americans. They're actually the original Jewish Israelites. They believe they're from the tribe of Judah, and it depends on which one you get. You have all different kinds of beliefs, but ultimately they believe essentially that all Black people are Israelites, and they come from the tribe of Judah. When we white people are Edomites, and like I said, depends on what happens after that. That's up to whoever camp they are. Rather it be the guy that claims he's the Holy Spirit in the flesh, one group that claims that they have some sort of Pope hierarchy, or the guy that believes Christianity is a homosexual penis worshipping cult. Whichever
Isn't it like a
I had
kind
you
of
for that.
13th tribe kind of thing too?
Oh, maybe you're
13th
a Christian.
This is I actually think that white
I'm
people
actually
are
down with that. Where do I sign up for that?
Me and Kyle, let's convert. Where do we sign?
Oh God! And some of them actually believe that the white man is literally the offspring of demons and aliens. That's how the white.
Okay, yeah,
Love
it's
it.
ludicrous. I don't
So
wanna
aliens
get
came
into
down. They
a-
had sex with demons, and that produced people like myself, Kyle, Jamie, Hunter, who's whiter.
Well,
than
it
any.
did produce people like you. Speak for yourself.
Could be.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, I'm only white on the outside. Excuse me.
Okay. You got a good flow. Can you rap? 'Cause
This is
Steve-
deteriorating quickly.
Yeah, that probably would make me angry. I think that's
Yeah.
yeah.
But to be on the brighter side, Steve, can I whore myself
Did we
out
lose
for
Ozzy?
something? He said he had to leave earlier.
Joshua says you guys have it wrong. Love you guys, no less. Thank you, Joshua. And you know what? I don't want to lump them all together. I've met some Black Hebrew Israelites that I think are actually nice people.
Yes.
So I don't want to throw them all in the same category because that'd be
Yeah, that's why I say there's difference depending on which one you get. But
Can I say real quick, Hunter, you're being quiet. Is there anything that you want to get off your chest?
Is my mic working?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. No, I mean, I had a little saying for the Black Hebrew Israelites, but other than that, I'm just going along with the conversation.
Okay. Just
Can I-
everybody you were cool.
can I hold
You're the
myself
quiet
out
one.
real quick, Steve?
Yeah, go pimp yourself, baby.
Pimp myself. All right, that's a politer term. So check this out, y'all. We got this thing going on in Louisiana here at Baton Rouge, May 11th through the 13th. Y'all better hurry on over, get over there, because on Sunday around 2:45 p.m., your boy here got a panel going on that's going to last from 2:45 to 4 o'clock, taking questions on Christianity and voice acting. So if y'all want questions on either of those, y'all better get y'all's sexy behinds on over.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is the most energetic I have ever heard Christian Anarchist in my life.
Oh, anime,
if
yeah.
you want to see me at my most energetic, you should try getting me to do different voices. That's a challenge I like doing all the time.
No. Get him
James
LARPing.
Spader.
Get him LARPing. That'll get
James Spader.
Dang it! I don't have a James Spader voice.
No, you do.
This could be fun.
How about Mickey Mouse?
Okay. Oh, Mickey Mouse. A very terrible one.
All right, we're done.
You should do a debate in that.
Sorry.
I don't think I could keep it.
Mouse
Do it.
voice.
Great.
Mickey Mouse on the that would be excellent.
Can anybody do Donald Duck?
Oh, that's the one I can't do.
Oh man.
Oh, Donald Duck. That's a hard one. And Hunter has actually seen it done. I have to have spicy foods usually for me to do that.
Shannon, can you
Not to
do your
ruin something.
That's both interesting and disturbing at the same time.
Wait,
What am I
Shannon,
supposed
are you under contract where you can't do your Eve voice, or can you do your Eve voice?
Oh, my Eve. No, Zod has to reveal my Eve voice.
Okay. See, she has an NDA. So,
I can't do anything until Zod's video comes out.
Yeah,
Me and
fine.
Paul are Adam and Eve.
yeah.
I've been
so
waiting for that. Oh my goodness.
We're not going to make you
Paul
violate
or Adam
your
and Eve?
Well then.
When is that? When
Paul
is it
played
coming out?
You're the bitch that started seeing.
That's right. I'm the source of the world's problems. Confirmed.
You ate the apple.
Way to go, woman.
I knew you were trouble when I met you.
Yeah,
Was it
well,
apple
it's
or
not
was it
subtle.
just-
Damn Apple. So when is that out?
I don't know. Zod's whatever Zod finishes it. We gave him the audio files a little while ago, so he's got to animate it
guess
too, though,
what?
right? What?
Guess what? Do you know who her kids are?
Whose kids?
Me and Godless Engineer.
No.
You're
Stop
Cain and
it. Are you
Abel?
guys Cain and
Yep.
Abel?
Yeah, the Cain Abel.
Who gets to kill who? Which one's Cain and which one's Abel? Is it a secret?
We're in an NDA.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, my
You
kids!
don't even know your own kids.
Kids.
I'm so excited. I was too busy destroying humanity.
We found them.
Some creator matriarch you've turned out to be.
Besides, childbirth was my curse.
It was funny
that was
because
God's
he
curse to
messaged-
me. He cursed me with childbirth. That was their
He-
curse.
He messaged me
kids.
and he said I knew with a really bad redneck voice. Do you think you're in?
God was like, buddy.
Hello.
Wait, what's that about redneck voices?
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm from the South. Bring me on.
That's why you and I got the part. That's why you and I got the part, Godless Engineer.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Because you're both from the South.
That's amazing.
Hey, you know, I can turn
How
up
do
the
you not
redneck
know
really
that?
quick.
Well, I'll be.
Oh, that's awesome. My kids.
Imagine
Your
Cain and
hearts.
Abel with a fanny pack, a white beater, and a Dale Earnhardt t-shirt,
Oh my God.
walking
Somebody
around the
needs to
Garden
take
of
a
Eden.
Family photo. Somebody needs to Photoshop a family photo of me and Paul with you, with John and Kyle.
And Robert Tilton is a whole.
That's gotta be. That will break the
That's
internet.
A thing that has to happen.
That's my. You know what? I can't get over. That's my favorite thing from Zod's video is the fact that he had Robert Tilton as the Holy Ghost. That was the most brilliant thing I've ever. That was creative genius. Seriously.
Oh, I know.
That's
Am I wrong? I mean,
that's the
that's
farting preacher, right? Isn't that the farting preacher?
No,
The guy- yes.
Oh,
Right.
He talks in
Yes.
voices.
He does
He
the
speaks
thank
in
you,
tongues.
Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
And
Yes.
it's like explained, in order for someone to be receiving some sort of revelation,
He's the
or
one-
sign, you got to send a donation of $5,000. Like literally,
Mhm.
says the high specific
said-
amount of money.
he said that he's seen midgets' legs grow. Like right before he got.
That was the best.
Right before he
gotta
he
be the
goes to
fan
one
now
of
he
his
plays in the
speaking
NBA.
talks, he says, "I've seen midgets' legs grow."
And I'm not making this stuff up.
And what's funnier too is one time he slipped up and said, "I'm not lying, friends. Satan gave me this message," and then he stopped right there.
Okay, everybody, listen.
I'm just getting into a prophetic vein. Mama moko solo robasata. Manda de king de someone with a digestive tract problems. Quickly called. Manda de bakasata. There's a miracle for you. Manda kishin de soya. Intestinal problems. Someone with similar intestinal problems. We've seen several people being delivered from the colostomy bag. Solo basoya. Disability with a child, some type of a learning disability. We've seen many children healed. We've seen midgets grow. We've seen arms and legs that stop growing because the growth cells have stopped. We have thousands
Wow.
of testimonials
Oh my God.
of people's lives that have been
You can't
That's
make that up.
grow.
Mama la ba la la mama la la.
Mama say,
Funny,
Mama saw,
funny
Mama
story,
saw.
guys. Funny story. I actually sent a letter or an email to because he's still doing this on public access channels.
Oh
I
gosh.
actually sent an email to Robert Tilton asking him to come on to our show. Now, shockingly, I haven't heard anything back yet, but we're still holding out hope. So, Robert Tilton, if you're watching, we believe have made midgets grow. We want you to come and share that testimony here on our show.
Yeah, curious question to Hunter for being Assemblies of God. What do you think of that?
I knew someone was going to bring that up. Yeah, that was bullcrap. That was complete bullcrap.
Oh
yeah. I don't. He was full of crap. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. You mean he didn't actually see midgets grow?
Yeah, we're mythicists about the midget growth.
So what do you guys think?
I'm not even sure if it's still okay to say that. I should probably apologize for you.
I don't think there's any historicity of midgets growing.
Historicity of midgets growing. What do you guys think of Christians when you see things like Tilton? You see things worse when you see things like Benny Hinn, and you see that fake. We all know. I mean, let's be realistic. That's all bullshit, fake healing. I don't think anybody even thinks that any of that's legit. So, as Christians, what do you?
There's some.
So, what do you guys think? Because we have Christians in here. So, what do you guys think when you see that mockery people are making of Christianity, and how is that any different to like the Satanists, which like we're going to have on? I mean, the whole point of Satanism is to mock Christianity, and I just made a tweet earlier today, and it was somewhat tongue in cheek, but there's some seriousness to it. That pastafarians is similar to Satanism in that regard. Pastafarians want to mock Christianity, and they just pick a different god and attributes to do so. I think there's a relatively good argument to be made. Pastafarians.
What is that?
You've never been exposed to the holy monster. Yeah, you've never been exposed to the holy noodle appendage that for the spaghetti.
The holy noodle. What?
Yeah, the holy noodleage. You're not a pastafarian?
What is that?
Oh, come on. I've never heard of spaghetti monster.
You haven't heard of the spaghetti monster? The Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Yeah, there's people that actually believe it.
Come on. Stop.
You are not. Wait, no, seriously. No, you're fucking with me. You're fucking with me. You have never heard of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster?
I fucking hate people.
I thought it was a joke.
You haven't heard of them?
Yeah, I'm serious. Maybe he's not. He really have not heard of that?
No.
Pastafarian is somebody who subscribe. It's actually a denomination of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Yeah.
It's a real organization.
It's like it's a real organization, but no, Kyle, they're atheistic. It's like a mocking church. They're essentially saying you can believe in your magic, whatever. We're gonna believe.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't actually worship noodles.
Yeah.
Okay. I was sitting here picturing.
It's satirical. It's like to prove a point.
Okay.
They're saying
there is
that
a small minority though that does buy into it, but it's the majority for the most part.
Well, the world's filled with.
I'm on board now.
Exactly.
They're extremists. Actually worship noodles, and I was like, just a little bit ago, I put your God in a pot. Again, it's pretty good.
Your God for dinner was excellent, by the way.
Pasta really is almost good enough to worship.
Yeah,
I put a link in the chat, Kyle, to the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. By the way,
I could find the humor in the pastafarian. It is mocking Christians, just like the Satanism is, which I don't subscribe to either one. But so I'm going to go back to the Christians again. When you see people like Benny Hinn, how is that any different than mockery of any other sort? Because I think what he does is a mockery. Do you?
Well, I think it's mostly the only difference is that some people are intentionally doing it, others aren't intentionally doing it. They're just deceived in what they're doing. But yeah, they are making a mockery of Christianity, and it's pretty much the same thing in that regard, because they're basically either selfish or they're trying to paint their own fantasy world and make it real life. Like they've seen too many stuff in the comic books or such, and they want to make it reality. That's why you got additional things that they try to add on to what they're believing and all that kind of stuff. So when you see Benny Hinn doing Mortal Kombat fighting moves on people to try to get the Holy Ghost out of them, I mean, where exactly was this going on? And then you have Robert Tillman. How do you know it has to specifically be $5,000 in order for the goodness to start coming? Good sir. And then you have Creflo Dollar somehow thinking that the power of shoes can bless the money you throw onto the stage. I mean, it's just
that is true in some cases.
Prosperity gospel,
Yep.
Did you not see the Pope's red shoes?
No. So the follow-up question would be, though, what do you think is more dangerous than to Christianity? Do you think it's these prosperity gospel people, these fake healers, these people that are clearly fleecing people out of their hard-earned money and deceptive, or do you think it's the atheists out there going, God doesn't exist, or we don't believe God exists? So what?
I think it's the prosperity teachers.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you. I think it's far more detrimental. And also with young Earth creationism and flat Earth and all that other bullshit. So I think that if Christians really wanted to make themselves in a more positive light, they need to stop worrying about the fucking atheists. They need to start policing themselves. And it goes into like even stuff in our own community. There are people that are doing some pretty shady shit that call themselves Christians.
Right, and that's why I think where we spend most of our time in apologetics, at least concerning me and Hunter for the most part, go to either people that claim to be Christian, but yet they're part of either a cult or some strange following, or these other different false religions that are out there, say Islam and all these other things. So, yeah, I agree that there's a lot more bigger problems than just the atheists. When I first came on and started talking about atheism, which was more of a response to get G-Man to shut up about me.
You mentioned the G word.
Yep, mentioned the G word.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I don't have a drink.
Did somebody say?
I gotta get more.
Did somebody?
All right. Well, for that reason, I will just say the man who shall not be named. Then at that point, we'll just treat him that way, Harry Potter style, right? So, yeah. So in response,
the evangelist that shall not be named.
Yes, the evangelist that shall not be named. But in response to him, I just simply said, I see atheism as really not much of a big deal or making too much of a huge impact concerning
but his whole life everything is about, to him, the atheists are the worst people on the planet.
Yeah, he literally thinks that there's some sort of conspiracy and such. That was why I'm now having him blocked, is because the conversation we had was ridiculous to the point where he tried to insinuate that somehow I'm a homosexual because I accidentally stuttered when he asked me a question. He's asked me in the past like 50 times. And
can I clear that up since I'm the expert on that?
Oh, so you're actually gay? I thought flirting was just play.
I was confused. I thought you were involved. The only reason I thought you were gay,
when it comes to
hang on. The only reason I thought CA was gay is because he was sucking my dick one night, and
I will kill you.
You finish up and get out.
Alice now, Christian anarchist.
You're not the only expert, by the way, Kyle.
Oh,
sorry, CA, but that was funny.
Hunter, you're gonna have to baptize me in holy water after this.
Hey, that's something I would watch.
Water sports. Oh my God, sports. Interesting.
Oh my God,
This is why we can't have
my heart sing.
It's a little
what were you going to say, Kyle, before that comment?
Oh God.
Huh?
You were trying to say something before that comment.
I don't know. I'm just picturing you and Hunter baptizing each other right now. So.
They have been in the same room.
Hunter, I'm going to let you speak for yourself on this one.
Yeah, Hunter, come on up.
No, Hunter's I know who Hunter's crush is. It seems he has a crush on anti-urinary.
Oh, Anti. She's so sweet. That'd be so sweet.
She's pretty. I don't blame him.
Do what?
You have a crush on anti-urinary.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah,
I don't either.
Oh, look at him. Oh, I don't know who she is.
I don't. Or
been in here with you a few times.
Huh?
Been in here with you a few times. Oh.
I mean, I don't remember. So.
Max had a noise.
Sorry.
We'll show you her later. She's pretty though. She's pretty.
Then you go after
her. Not my thing.
Not your thing.
Not my thing.
Let's talk about atheism, LGBT. Okay, I think I've seen her before.
You haven't watched her videos? She has really good videos.
I've seen Oli and her in a couple of hangouts with y'all, I think. But that's the only thing I really remember.
I've been on her channel once or twice.
Right.
So he says that noise trying to. What's that, John?
I got an interview with her on my channel.
Yeah, she's really pleasant. Really nice.
Nice.
So anyway,
she's another one of the godless bitches.
Yeah, she is. I just been, oh shit. Well, I'm supposed to be uploading something for her right now. God damn it. Thank you for mentioning her name.
No problem. We do our best.
She's got her 1,000 subscribers. Life's so busy right now.
No, my life is really ridiculously busy before I had to make a video because I'm so busy making content for other people's channels.
It sucks for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're actually doing it for hours too. Coming up, the 10 questions that Christians can't answer.
Yes, we're recording that tomorrow night. Me and Paul were talking about what our question was going to be today. Actually, we're going to do it together with our avatars. So I have a question for you. Do you want us to do 2 questions, or just one question, or 2-part question?
Responding, is that right?
Yeah, do. I think I've got so many coming in now. Do one question together. You know,
Okay.
it can be a compound question if you want, like a 2-parter.
We can just do it in harmony either
I think
way.
that would be cool.
That's what we were banging around doing, like banging.
Wait, we're banging around.
When we were thinking about this.
That's what
This could actually be better video. This was not the video I was talking about, Shannon.
Yes.
I'll go with it.
Paul and I were banging around some questions.
We're thinking about you while they were banging. What does that tell you?
Oh, fuck. All right. Anyway, sorry. That's what we were talking about, was maybe doing like a 2-tiered question, because we figured you had so many from earlier today that you're probably like 10 is probably it might be 48 questions.
And that guy is actually he responded to me, very pleasant gentleman. Even though these were not originally his questions, they were from somebody else. But he actually said he's looking forward to the 10 questions. So.
Oh, cool.
And the video will end with Hunter baptizing Christian Anarchist in holy water.
It better. I'm
not even going to say anything anymore about it.
You don't have to.
We're just giving you a hard time.
We can just think
we're
about
just giving
it.
you a hard time.
You still owe me a drink, Kyle.
Oh, I do.
Well, he just threw Hunter under the bus. Screw you, Hunter. I'm going for Kyle.
No, I know.
That's okay. It happened.
I ain't even Hunter's type, anyways.
This is the most non-gayest, gayest hangout I've ever had.
I don't know what is even going on right now. I'm just
Hunter's
roll with
just
it.
like, I'm just rolling.
Once again, let me say this. When you think that you've seen it all, and you can't be surprised anymore.
Very little surprising.
You'd be surprised.
By the way,
Wait, did that seriously beat up Jesus eating his own cum?
That's what
I am going.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that in the discussion.
Is it that explicit? Is it that explicit? Like in the scroll, like what does it actually say? Like,
No,
is it that?
Which
like,
gospel was which Gnostic or whatever gospel this was that said this?
Well, I mean, let's see. I can't. I've got.
I didn't know
I've got a video on it where I've got the list of sources. So hold on, let me find it. But yeah, no, it was a later author that referenced some kind of thing, like a reference of Jesus, and it legit has it in there, because I remember, because I was at Mythicist Milwaukee, the first conference that they had. We were all bullshitting around. Richard Carrier was there, and I was like, hey guys, this story, and they're like, no, it doesn't say that. And Rick brought up his iPad, got on there, looked it up, and was like, yep, there it is. It's right there, exactly how he said it.
What did it say? It said what? No.
I'm pulling it up right now. It says,
Somebody read it to me, because I need this in my life.
He's got it. Go, Jamie.
Yep.
Oh Lord.
Go, Jamie.
No, I almost spit my drink when I heard you say that. I thought you were setting him up just to get him to, get off, kilter there. But when you said it was a legitimate gospel, I go, what is going on?
It took me off kilter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it. Let me see.
Just type Jesus come into Google and see what happens, Kyle, and let us all know.
No.
I don't think they used the word. I don't think they used that word.
Google will be like, I remember you, Kyle.
That's the least of questionable things I've Googled before.
By the way, while you're looking, whoever's looking that up, so Godless, besides the one book from Paul Barnett, you're getting, was there any other books from my side of the debate that you had read before?
Well, no. I mean, like I said, I bought the book that you had posted on Twitter, and I didn't get a chance to read all the way through it, but I did read a few reviews of it. And so that really helped me informed like where I needed to be, like, I guess, researching. But I mean, really, that was just as far as the reliability of the Gospels go. And then, you know, I saw somebody in the comment section saying that I just repeat Richard Carrier, which I use Richard Carrier pretty extensively, but not for like it. I use him pretty extensively because he has a really great, extensive, I guess, library on like Josephus and Tacitus, Suetonius, like all these external sources. I mean, he spent years compiling the source, you know, the on the historicity of Christ, on the historicity of Jesus. And but I mean, you can look at that and he pulls directly from the source. It's not like he's pulling from other people. And I mean, you can go to the sources themselves and you can look at the sources themselves and see what he's talking about. He lists like, you know, he lists Bible verses, and you can go and literally look up the Bible verses and see what he's talking about. But I mean, that's not the only mythicists that, you know, I pull from on that particular thing. I pull from some historicists too. Like there's Alice Wheely. She's a historical Christ person, and she actually definitively showed that the Aramaic version of Josephus that you mentioned in the actual debate, which I didn't get to address, she proved that that's actually from from other sources that use Eusebius's work. And so, I mean, she proved that, you know, that's not like a source pulling from the original Josephus. They're actually just using a version of Eusebius.
Mm-hmm.
And I killed the room. That is awesome.
The tribe won the war.
One of the things I wanted to say real quick is during watching the show, I thought both of your guests did a great job of bringing in, you know, I think the term that was used was it extra biblical? I think, Steve, is what you mentioned, was you know, bringing in stuff from outside of just Scripture. I did see a lot of Scripture use from the was it Christian Anarchist or sorry,
yeah, I did that for them on that. Yeah.
Okay. And then there was a lot of like you know, within the Bible kind of sources, but the one connection I appreciated from Godless Engineer was the you know, how the idea that Jesus could be a story from multiple individuals' histories combined, whether fictional or non-fictional. Which I kind of made a comment in the chat about Santa Claus is the same exact thing. You know, it's like Santa Claus actually has it's a conglomerate of multiple stories from you know, Greek gods and Norse gods and you know, the Dutch bringing over things like Clausian and all that stuff. Sometimes I wonder if that's the case. And then the last thing I was going to say was about that subject is when Steve was talking earlier about televangelists, and sometimes I wonder if during that biblical time, if you know, people didn't have TV, obviously, so I would imagine that their form of entertainment was going to the local township and just kind of seeing what was being talked about. And if somebody was out front saying God healed me and God did this, if it drew the same crowd that we get today, where people are watching, you know, the Trinity Broadcasting Network and all of that.
I'm sure it does. It did. I'm sure about that. Yeah. Why not? I mean, we know that, like, for example, when the preacher uses that Southern drawl type of I don't know what there's a word for it, but the car salesman type way of speaking.
Southern charm.
We know that there's a psychological effect. It seems to be honed skill that people respond to it. Right? I mean, have you looked at any of that? People that use that very...
Is that right, Christian Anarchist? Do you respond to...
Type, but it's very in-your-face kind of thing.
What do you mean by Southern drawl? Like the accent?
Because Jesus will love you all the time. Because if you praise on your knees right now to Jesus... That kind of thing.
No, I'm a Southern Baptist, and there's some people certainly that have that Southern accent. Mostly for me, it's just you know, the doctrine that matters. So I mean, most likely, what I would prefer is something like more of how like you see with some Southern Baptist churches and mostly Reformed Baptist churches talking. If you see some of those, they're very like bland in tone. and all that. That's usually what I prefer, because I prefer what's the content, not the emphasis. And that to me draws certain people, including myself. That's what draws me. That's what draws a few other people. So we're in it for like the technicality of examining things.
I was an independent Baptist.
I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. The far right wing of the Baptist party. So if you don't think Southern Baptists are red enough,
yeah, exactly.
But you're a Calvinist now, right?
Mm-hmm. 5-pointer.
5 point. He's a full 5-point. You want to tell us?
So what are the differences between? What are the main differences between that and like a Southern Baptist? Like what sets the Calvinist aside?
What sets the Calvinist aside from? Well, I mean, Southern Baptist doesn't really have because they have Calvinists in there, including their president is a Calvinist. The Calvinist just
your average Baptist. What's that? Your average church person
would be the concept of, say, Arminian and Calvinistic type of doctrines, because one affirms the concept that every single choice is truly free in the libertarian sense, that we have an autonomous will that allows us to make decisions outside of the fact of say the issue of the will and the nature that we have and all that, whereas Calvinism affirms that there's a limit to the will, and that we make decisions based upon our nature and our will, and then you have issues like, well, did God die for every single individual, or did he die for a certain elect few, which is then known as the elect?
Yeah, let me sum it up.
Interesting.
Let me sum it up. This is this is Calvinism.
Yeah,
there you go.
You're a piece of shit. Whether you were saved or not, God already made the determination. So whatever you do, it doesn't freaking matter. Jesus only died for the people that are saved. He screws everybody else.
That's what I find fascinating. That's what I find fascinating.
Oh yeah, that only God can make the elect, and that once you're saved, which you saved from the beginning, you're always saved, which makes no sense, because you're if God made you elect prior to your existence anyways, then what does it mean? What does it even mean to be always saved? You can't lose salvation. So basically, you're
making an argument.
You're just a piece of shit. Elect is not a piece of shit, but the elect say they're elect because they want to be elected. That's it.
Well, let me make an argument. Christian Anarchist, using the Bible, if it says, "For God so loved the world," right? That would mean everyone, right? Because he doesn't say, "For God so loved some of the world."
Right.
And by the way, I thought my analysis was pretty spot on, but whatever.
So he did die for everyone, right?
Not necessarily, because the verse, the very next part of that verse, is what's in context in regards to that, because it says, "For God so loved the world," which personally I prefer, "For God loved the world" in this way, because that's literally how the rendering of the Greek is more accurately defined as.
But he does say the world, not some of the world, right?
Right, and that's in reference to the issue about not just simply the Israelites, the Jews, but also including of the Gentiles, which was something that was challenging, especially considering the author being John, the Jew, writing this in the context that while there were Jews that were going to be part of this, also the Gentiles, which they would consider the world, are also going to be included in this. So it's not just simply "For God loved the Israelites."
The world includes everyone on the world.
Agreed. But that verse is alone.
So where do we disagree?
Well, the disagreement is the interpretation that says that because it says "For God loved the world" in this way, that means that then he died for everyone. When the very next part of it says,
hold on 1 second. 1 second. I want to go through this. I want to go through this bit by bit. Okay.
All right.
If he says the world, everybody on the world is in the world, so they would be the world, right?
Right.
Okay. So if he loved, I would assume that means he means everyone on the world.
Well, it's not referring to an individuality. It's simply referring to the issue of including within group categories, such as Israelites and Gentiles, and world, including both categories of Jews and Gentiles. And so that's what I would use within the concept of worlds, not necessarily referring to individuality, but including of all different types of groups, whether it be Jew, Gentile.
There's the key word right there, all. You said all. Okay, so now, where again does it say that there's a separate metaphor?
That there's a what? You broke up there for a bit.
So you're making the claim that he didn't die for everyone. Now this is just me assuming that I'm taking it as, you know, meaning what it says. Playing devil's advocate right now. If you're saying that he's including all means, I mean,
all kinds of people,
everything, everyone. Right. Okay. Perfect. So where do you get an interpretation that means he didn't die for all, but for some?
Right. And that's what I was going to get into, because it says right there, so that everyone who believes in him, which is pas hos pasteuon in the Greek, which literally translates to the believing ones, or the ones who believe in him, will not perish but have everlasting life. So that's where we get the issue of who specifically is redeemed, is that those who believe in him, and that's that's the qualification upon concerning those who are elect, is that those who have the saving faith and believe in him.
So by you saying that he only died for some people, you're saying that he died for the people who believe in him, right? So really, if you are a believer in Jesus, then he died for you. But how do you get that he's making the determination that this person is elect? Because if you believe in Jesus, and it goes back to this phrase, then that's them accepting him. That's them making the decision. So it's not that I mean, let me ask you this question. Can you be somebody that is saved and not be elect?
Well, concerning, I mean, in a way, I would say a bit of a yes and no, because I believe that at one point a person is an unbeliever, and they haven't been elected onto that point of salvation yet until they hear the gospel and believe and convert, and of which I would say that.
But if they truly believe, is there a possibility that they are not elect?
If they truly believe, is it a possibility they aren't elect? I don't believe that to be the case. If they truly believe, then they are of the elect.
Yeah, see, and that is a
so there's no different than
Trevor
people who believe in Jesus.
What's that, John?
Well, I have a saucy tale whenever the conversation comes to, you know, me being able to talk.
Okay, real quick though.
That's good. I mean, there's really no. I'm just going to say there's really no difference between
the statement. Whoever believes in Jesus is a conditional. You have to believe in him to receive that. A better argument would be a really much better argument if you want to pose to Christian anarchists is a logical argument. If you want to assign certain attributes to God, saying that he's all loving and he's also all merciful at the same time, that to me is a contradiction, because if he's all loving, then you don't have to do anything to get his salvation, right? And if you don't have his salvation, then can't be all merciful because he's not showing you mercy. Because in order to show you, the whole point of mercy is saying, hey, you don't meet these conditions or whatever, but I'm going to show you mercy, and you're going to save you anyway. So you can't have in the same deity, I think, in all loving and all merciful God, they seem to be a contradiction to each other. It's like saying, you know, I'm all, you have personal security and you also have, you know, autonomy, right? You can't have 100% freedom with 100% personal, you know, security, right? You have to sacrifice one for the other. So you can't have a God that claims to be all merciful and also all loving, or even all justice, right? If God is all justice, then in order to have mercy, right, you have to be able to suspend that justice. You have to say, okay, that you've done the crime, right? And instead of dispensing the justice, I'm going to be merciful to you. So these are contradictions that I think exist in these omni type deities.
Right, but at the same time, it doesn't anywhere say he is all merciful or any of those things. Most of the
but that's the general narrative, that God is all loving, all benevolent, all merciful, all knowing, all omnipotent. That's what when Anselm's talking about an omni type God. These are the omnis that are attributed to him, are they not?
Well, for some of the people, yes, but the issue is about what the Bible and the text says, and the issue is that he is merciful, just simply period lays out that he's merciful, but at the same time is also a a just God and as one that will deliver a wrath. So I
can't
agree that
be-
if he was
but God
all,
can't
if it
be
was simply
though.
just an all like 100% just trying to lay out that
forget
period,
imaginary.
then that would
And the
be
modality's off, right? I mean, I again, the narrative is maybe you're not subscribing to that. And again, I don't read in that you have to have an omni-type God, but throughout history, generally speaking, these are omni attributes that have been attributed to a theist type position.
right.
And
And
do you
like I said,
believe
I don't
those?
simply go by the popular opinion. When I get
I
my
know.
issue about the things, I just
Do-
go
do
with
you-
what the text says.
All right, so you don't hold to those particular omnis then?
Well, I wouldn't describe them or use them in that context. I may understand where they're coming from, but I personally would prefer to use the terms concerning how the Bible defines this, and that be the case.
All
Because
right,
once
does
we use
anybody else?
omni, then we start getting into some ideas that then, as you say, do start to sound contradictory.
Can,
All right,
can I,
fair enough.
can I jump in on something?
Yeah, but, let John go real quick. He had a sexual story.
Oh,
Did I
I'm
miss it?
sorry. Go ahead.
Is that what he means by
Did you
saucy?
sex
Because oh
story?
my goodness, I'm going to need another
Yeah,
baptism.
saucy. I'm sorry. Not saucy. And then Jamie, real quick.
We'll get that taken, Marcus. Don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you guys see like my screen? I should be screen sharing, I think.
No,
I swear,
nope.
is this going to be it?
Yeah, careful. I this is monetized. So
Okay.
I can't see your screen, John.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Your screen.
Well, yeah. So I don't know. It says you are screen sharing, but I'm gonna call bullshit on Google.
You're lying.
Okay. Huh?
Did you have it full screen? Sometimes that prevents it from showing.
No, it's not full screen. I zoomed in a little bit, but okay. So what I was referencing to earlier, it comes from Jesus Interrupted. That's a Bart Ehrman book. But I mean, he's referencing like an actual historical document. It's Epiphanius the Panarian, book 26 is where this occurs. Now, Bart does say that it could have been like it could have been Epiphanius that just made this up. So it's not necessarily like what a Christian sect believed or anything like that, but it says this book, The Greater Questions of Mary, allegedly contained a bizarre account of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, in which Jesus takes Mary up to a high mountain and in her presence pulls a woman out of his side, much as God made Eve from the rib of Adam, and begins having sexual intercourse with her. When he comes to climax, however, he pulls out of her, collects his semen in his hand, and eats it, telling Mary, "Thus must we do to live." Mary, understandably enough, faints on the spot.
Well, I have several opinions on this.
Not the strangest thing I've ever heard.
Super saucy.
Saucy. My face is actually red right now. I can feel how red.
Redder than that shirt.
My,
Where did you say that was from? Where did you quote that from?
Black coffee now.
Okay, so it's in Jesus Interrupted on page 117 is where it occurs in Bart Ehrman, but the actual source document says
she's got the vapors. Check it out, she's got the vapors.
I did. When I woke up this morning, I had no idea there was gonna be a story about Jesus eating his own semen because he had sex with a side lady that he made in front of his
literally a side lady.
He's a side bitch.
This is a good day. Today's a good day. This is a good
That's my bedtime story.
Oh, God.
On the side.
Oh, I hate when that happens. Oh, frick. Okay.
I'm sorry, Hunter and Christian Anarchist. This trumps the baptizing story a little bit. Now I've got a view in my.
I'll live.
Well,
yeah.
So Hunter, it's Epiphanius the Panarian, book 26.
I'm googling that right now.
Where Bart says
First come unto me.
All right. So hey, you know what? Jamie's got to beat that one.
I was just going to say,
Good luck with that.
My search results returned 50 Shades of Luke, and what was the other one I had here? Red Shoe Gospels.
What kind of movie is that?
No, but mine wasn't going to be anywhere near as entertaining as that. I was just going to say about it troubles me a little bit, and again, I'm not saying this as a defense for the Bible as being an authoritative document. I just mean you take this concept that you have an omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God that has the ability to do anything. And if the course of action in that being's, will is to say, here's a book, you need this book. And, whether if you want to, and I know you brought up the English only or the King James only group, but just say that it's, everybody gets their own translation for the language that they speak. Nobody today is speaking the Greek of the Bible, where the Bible comes from, except for people who study it. And so when I hear somebody say, but the Greek says, I become extremely skeptical at that moment, because I don't mean to doubt anybody's qualifications, but it's just how am I supposed to get the message if I don't speak Greek? I have to get another book. How do I know that book was inspired or preserved? So again, I'm not making that comment to support it. I'm just saying, if you tell me that the God is omniscient, omnipotent, and then say, but you need this Strong's Concordance, or you got to take this online class to understand a little bit more, I just get skeptical at that point.
I've used the same argument. In fact, Shane gave a super chat, $2. God is the author of confusion. Thank you. And I made the same point. I'm like, look, if I want to know about something when it comes to God, why does there have to be so many hoops? I mean, why do I take 4 years of biblical studies, 3 years of Greek and Latin? I mean, all these things that, people that like to study the Bible from a historical point of view, I find fascinating, right? It is a massive piece of literature. People that have PhDs that have, are atheists that study the Bible, I find that to be fine. But if God wants me to know He exists, exactly like you said, why do I have to have that much detailed knowledge when nobody before us, 2,000 years ago, they didn't have to have that much knowledge. They said, oh, look, Jesus is here. I'm hanging out with Jesus.
Because you're not elect.
Because I'm not elect. Well, I don't know. I might be. You know who decides if they're elect or not? It's not God. It's the person. I'm kind of being facetious here, but the person gets to decide whether they think they're elect or not. But is that true, Christian Anarchist? There are people, you get to decide whether God has told you you're elect or not, right?
Here's a good question. Let me put it to you this way, Christian Anarchist. I guess it's the same question, but in a different format. You're elected right now, right? What if all of a sudden you decide tomorrow to be an atheist? Would you be unelected then?
I don't have a certain knowledge that I am of the elect.
Can I have I have a question to ask before I go? I've got to go soon. Is it okay if I ask a question?
I thought we killed you. Sorry.
Yeah, I've recovered. Not partially.
Pretty.
I'm here to look pretty. Oh,
only the gay man can get away with that, saying that. So just FYI.
Exactly anybody who wants to call me pretty can call me pretty whenever they want. It's just go ahead. So about the elect thing, that further to Steve's point, what confuses me about that is, if there is a section of people who are considered elect, if God determines who's elect, then He's selecting people. And if we determine who's elect, then it's not up to God. Right? So either God is picking and choosing people, so it's predetermined. So when you're born, you have no choice whether or not you're going to be elect, because God's already predetermined it before you were born. Or you're born and God hasn't chosen anybody, and it's up to you to decide if you're elect or not, in which case it's out of the hands of God. So which one of those two is it? Because it can only be one of those two.
If it's the first one, it totally just throws out free will.
Right. Sure. And if it's the second one, then God is not, then what's the point of there even
God is a nerd.
That's what makes him a Calvinist.
He's not all knowing.
That's what makes him a Calvinist.
Right.
He believes that it is predetermined. That's what Calvinists are set aside from in that different standpoint, because they do believe.
Okay, so before you're born, God's already decided whether or not you're going to be one of the elect. So no matter what you do in your life, you either are or you are not.
Right.
And you have no way of knowing.
Yeah. Right. If you're not elect, you're called a reprobate.
Right. That is bonkers.
Christian Anarchist, your response?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not the first time I've heard it.
That's crazy. I wonder why. Because it's crazy.
Why do you accept that? I mean, there's a lot of issues that go into when it comes to predetermination and hyper Calvinism, especially. Because you have
What's a hyper Calvinist?
Oh my goodness. These guys, I've met. They're very unpleasant. Steve, you actually talked to one.
I did. It was a horrific experience, and the guy actually left the internet. He got his ass beat so bad. I'm not kidding. He hasn't been since when he learned that he was so much into logic, right? And he was like, "Well, if you don't believe in the laws of logic, then how can we have a conversation?" And I tried to explain to him, his prime person he was going to, Aristotle, didn't even accept some of the laws of logic, and he blew his mind, and he left the internet. His whole paradigm came crashing down.
He came back for a little bit.
That was his name, Hyper Calvinist too.
Yeah,
but what do they believe? What makes them? How can you go more extreme than a Calvinist?
Here's how. So for one, they will attack some of the classical Calvinist authors. So like, for example, like they will say, even me, I've been accused of being a Roman Catholic Jesuit supporting free will theology and all that, because they want to assert that instead of the compatibilist idea of free will or determinism at that point, they want to say it's about it's got to be extremely hardcore that if you say that there is a choice or the issue of it says make a decision for Christ or anything like that, then you're preaching a false gospel or anything like that. They're like theological word Nazis. They will listen very carefully to what you say.
Yeah, Hyper Calvinists out there, get a girlfriend or a hobby. I promise you won't have time to parse words at that point.
I met a couple.
Be fine with Calvinism, but get a life.
Correct me if I'm wrong, CA, but was not Mark Thomas. Mark, no, what's his name? What was that guy's name? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mark Thomas, wasn't it?
Mark Thomas.
Calvinist, and I think Jimmy Stevens was a Hyper Calvinist, was he not?
Well, Jimmy was by Mark Thomas. Are you referring to the guy that had the smiley face logo?
Yeah, no, not that guy. That was Jehovah's Witness. So the other one by the similar name. He used to go on Naughty's channel all the time.
Wait a minute, Mark. Do you mean Mac Thomas?
Mac Thomas. Thank you.
No, but he does believe in some form of it because he is now a Hebrew Israelite.
Oh, I speak of Hebrew Israelites. Yes, I'm going to butcher this. Yeshua?
Call me a hyper skeptic from now on.
There you go.
Can that be a thing?
What do you want me to call it?
I had to add in there real quick. I had to add in there. One time I was at a city where there was a Trump rally going on, and there was some neo-Nazis there, and some of my friends stepped outside just to see what was going on. And I literally overheard the neo-Nazis go, "Yeah, I'm okay with these Aryans and stuff, but fuck that shit where they like the gray blue eyes. I'm not into that." And they started getting into debates about who was more
than the gray blue eyes.
I'm worried about humanity. That's where I am.
Well, hey guys, I've actually got to go. So I'll see you guys later. It was great being on tonight and everything, and I can't wait for the next time.
Great. Awesome. We liked having a lot. It was great.
Just before you go, I just want to remind everyone that Jesus didn't wash his hands.
Oh You've been on the Twitter.
That too. I was waiting to say it before you guys said that, but I'm like, well, now's the best time.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night.
See you, man.
Let's get to Joshua real quick because Kyle wanted Joshua to come in.
I gotta go too, guys. I'm sorry.
It's
1 a.m. I have to work tomorrow. See you later.
I actually have to step off as well if I can take advantage of this time. Yeah. I want to thank you guys for inviting me in. I appreciate it.
It was nice meeting you, Jamie.
Yeah. I hope I can see you guys again.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely expanding, and we're getting a lot of people into the community, a lot of people involved in the Non Sequitur show. I'm enjoying it. I love the fact there's fresh people coming in rather than the same people like Hunter for like the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And then some.
Well, you guys have a good night then.
Thank you, Jamie.
Night.
And real quick, since I do have Hunter and CN here real quick, then we'll get the Ashura. Why is there still this narrative that I am somehow anti-Christian or I am bashing on Christians? I have yet to understand this, and yet when I've asked for a single shred of evidence of when this has ever occurred in the last 4 or 5 years, I started my YouTube channel. I think it was March 6, 2013. You can go look. So 5 years that I've had my YouTube channel. Most of it before that was just doing comments, not doing videos. But when have I ever attacked a Christian for being Christian? Because if I have nowhere. I'm no knowledge of this.
I think what it is that you're not attacking Christians or the Christian faith, but you're attacking certain sects of the Christian, like what Christians believe, like young Earth creationism, for instance, or certain doctrines that are just loopy or whatever. Like you're not attacking.
But I go from the science. I attack their science. I don't even attack.
But they take it personal because that's their faith, that's their doctrine, that's what they believe that who God is and everything, right? So of course, you know, that's what they think.
Pretty goddamn stupid for them to.
But that's what they think Christianity is, though. So therefore, in their mindset, that's attacking Christianity.
You're asking the right questions.
Yeah,
you know, but if that's their reasoning, right? And I do agree that he's probably right. That's not a justified reason to say that I go around bashing Christians.
It's just their mindset. That's really on them. That's not
more dishonesty from the young Earth creationists. That's all. But anyways,
all you can do is keep debunking them. That's all you can do.
Joshua, you're not a young Earther, are you, my friend? Did you say no?
I think he said no.
Yeah, very low.
Are you okay?
Like a very far distance.
Okay.
Kind of like one of those things where like the bomb is dropping, it gets louder and louder. Except this one is going the opposite way, so it gets quieter.
He set his phone down. He's urinating. He's like, no.
Yeah.
He was falling out the window, but at the last second.
I think he's trying to get his mic sick because I think it was a mic problem.
That was really funny.
All right, let's see if we can get him back here.
Isn't he the
He actually had a debate with Veckel once. Forget what was it on. I think maybe the virgin birth or something like that. Yeah, I remember him. I forgot what he was called before that though.
It was, I actually know his name. It was called what was his name prior to this? You're gonna have to ask him. I totally forget. Yeah.
You forget everything. That's why no one likes you, Steve.
Dude, at my age, you know, they say the mind's the second thing to go. I don't remember what the first one is.
Oh, wow. That one fell flat, Steve.
Actually, I do know what the first one is. That's why I don't date.
That's why you have Kyle.
That's why I have Kyle. Yes. Kyle, you know what? Kyle's always willing to lend a helping hand.
There you go.
Kyle's all loving.
Yeah,
I just got that.
That's pretty accurate.
I didn't think about that until
that's pretty accurate.
After I said something. I didn't even think about that.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Call me anytime.
Oh my god. By the way, I wanted to ask, where do you do your like I don't know, like with your videos and everything, like the introductions and everything, like they're like super cool. And I'm just curious, like what do you use in order to make those kind of videos, those graphics? Yeah,
I use Premiere from Adobe for like the intro videos, and then for depending on what transitions and stuff like that you want to use, and then for the like graphics and stuff like that are on the thumbnails or promo stuff, I use Pixelmator. Which is I use Photoshop on some things, not a lot, just because I think that Pixelmator is it's a more user friendly, I think, format or interface. But yeah, Adobe and Pixelmator that I use for those two things.
Nice, good work. I mean, it looks really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was really impressed by it, and I've always been trying to figure out like what?
You got to. I think that's the most important part. Like if you're going to continue to do any type of show or have a channel of at some point, it's the first thing that people see. Whether it's on before they even see any of your content, they have to be enticed to click on it. So if you notice when you go on YouTube, you have a list of videos, and most of them are just like either a screen grab, just a regular picture of whoever's speaking or whatever. So you want to go with, in my opinion, something that stands completely out of that. Because obviously your eye's going to go to what stands out, not what blinks. So that's kind of the mindset that I like to go. And there's Easter eggs in each one of those graphics on the channel. I like to think in terms of like hidden messages and stuff like that. There are eggs in every thumbnail. You just have to look closely to get them.
So let's try to get Luna in here real quick. We got way too much testosterone in here. So
who's Luna?
Are you kidding me? Who's Luna?
Not
Luna?
for me. I'm actually enjoying it.
Oh my gosh!
You don't
The
know
only
Luna?
Luna that I know is a furry.
Oh, wow! You guys are missing. Well, Kyle doesn't care, but the rest of you, Luna's.
I would love to talk to a furry.
Oh, that can be arranged.
Furry.
I just heard of this thing called bronies or something like that.
You just heard of bronies?
What is that?
A brony?
Yeah.
Yeah, fans of the new My Little Pony show, basically.
They think My Little Pony is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. They worship My Little Pony.
Not all of them. There are some crazies, though. I will say, just like in everything.
Luna's a Mooney. Luna is a Mooney.
Brothers, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Loud and
Am I
clear.
getting an echo on your end?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Sound good.
Beautiful. How you fellas doing this evening?
Good. How are you, man?
Good,
awesome.
man.
All right, Steve. Long time.
It has been, but can you tell your original name that you went by?
Jesus DiCaprio.
Jesus DiCaprio.
Jesus DiCaprio. That's what it was. Jesus with the little apostrophe.
I like that actually.
Yeah. When you see
That sounds like a movie name.
Yeah, it kind of is actually. Jesus DiCaprio, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jesus Cristo.
Yeah. When you deal with my name, my attribute, Yahshua Libyan now, the name encompasses the origin of my ancestors. So we have Libya and we have the Nile Valley region, not to include South India, not to include Cambodia, Indonesia, not to include those geographical landmasses, but just to keep it simple enough for a layman to piece together the puzzle and understand. So that's why you see Yahshua Libyan now is basically one of my attributes, and everything means something. Even the name Jesus DiCaprio, it means something. So yeah, and I am
which tribe?
A Hebrew Israelite. I'm not a black Hebrew Israelite. No such thing as a black Hebrew Israelite. That's FBI coined that term. If y'all do y'all history,
Right,
on
and I
it,
use
y'all
Hebrew Israelite
research
for the
on it.
term.
Yeah, I'm a Hebrew Israelite, and I heard another brother say Hebrews teach all black people are Hebrews. No, sir, that's not true. No Hebrew teaches, no Israelite teaches that all blacks are Israelites.
It depends on where they're from.
Not one camp. Go ahead, Steve.
Doesn't matter like where they're from. Some locations are considered to be the tribe of Judah, but some locations are not.
No, negative.
How does that work then?
We go by the seed of the father. We go by oral history, and we go by written history, and we go by archaeology, anthropology, and sometimes genetics. And the reason I say sometimes genetics, because you have to delve in, scrutinize, separate, and verify the scientific jargon that's being put out. But some people don't do that. Some people stop as early as, say, 1492. When you deal with the Moors and Elizabethanese, some people don't go before that. So, you know.
I got a question, though. Would you as a Native American myself, would you consider me a Hebrew Israelite?
A Native? No. I don't consider all Native Americans Hebrew Israelites.
Okay.
Well, the tribe of Gad, though?
Oh, and I'm from
what happens if you're Jewish? Are Jewish people considered to be Hebrew Israelites?
I don't know what Jewish is. I don't know what that is.
And
that's like me telling you, meet me at 12 o'clock-ish. Meet me at, if we got a dinner date, I say meet me at 3-ish. You're gonna come somewhere around 3, not at 3 exactly.
It's close to
if it's reddish. It's not red.
It's close to
I know.
I don't know what a Jewish is.
I'm Irish and I'm Jewish, but I don't know if I'm.
Well, when we say Jewish, we're taking. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna ask
a Jew.
Say that again, my brother.
A Jew instead of Jewish. What if you were a Jew?
well, what if you were a Jew? Would consider Jew is short for Judah. I'm sure you guys know that, which was Jacob's fourthborn son. And if you are considered a Judite, then you are a direct descendant of the biblical character they call Judah. So everybody can't be Jews. A Benjamite can't be a Judite because that's not his forefather. A Levite cannot be a Judite, and so on and so forth. So we have this entire population around the globe identifying themselves as Jews, but none of those groups of people are identifying themselves as any other one of the 12 tribes.
That's not true.
They're
though,
only
because they can
identifying
interbreed.
themselves as Jews. Have you ever heard an Israeli says he's a Benjamite?
Well, let's grant that that's true, right? Let's grant that that's true. What about a real Jew? What's the deal with them? Yeah,
What is a
if you're
real
a Jew,
of course, what you're saying.
like if you're descended from Judah.
Okay. And your question is, what you mean? What's up with him?
Well, there are Jews that aren't African American. So what happens with them?
Oh, African. I don't know what an African American is. I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean,
that's the scriptures call those bywords and proverbs. So that's what the scriptures call those. Those are labels that will be
about. Like, I don't know anything about anything about. I know general about what you guys kind of ascribe to, but I'm a extreme layman. I don't know very much about, in detail or anything like that. So I'm coming at this from somebody who knows virtually. Let's pretend
he's whiter than white and non-Jew as non-Jew. Goyim as they get. Okay.
If you cut me, I bleed khaki and gap.
His middle name
is that white.
Yeah.
Wait, but I'm still wondering though. Don't you believe? Doesn't it teach though that like Native Americans come from the tribe of Gad though?
Doesn't it teach? What is the it?
According
the
to
Bible.
the Bible.
No.
Okay, so
not at all.
How do you distinct like between a man of your ethnicity versus another person? Like how do you get to determine, or how do you determine that you are you're an Israelite versus the next person? Versus anybody else that is of your same ethnicity. How do you figure that out?
What if I wanted to be a Hebrew Israelite? How do I become one?
Do what?
Through language. 1 second. I got you, my brother. I'm gonna answer his question. Then I'm gonna double right back to you, my brother. Kyle, I'm gonna double right back to you. You will know through language, rituals, customs, oral history, archaeology, biblical history, anthropology. These are some of the main, what you would say, avenues that you can explore to prove your ancestry, prove who you are, and through, should I say again, must reiterate, biblical prophecy.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? See, when we look at the people who we're calling Jews today, they're no more than descendants of Romans. You have to ask yourself, when a Roman Empire fell, where did the people go? Just disappear off the face of the earth?
No.
No. They didn't disappear off the face of the earth. When you look in the scriptures and they talk about Herod, when Herod was the king over the Jews, Herod was a what? Edomite. He come out the line of Esau. And if you look at the descendancy of these peoples, these are who people today call white people or Caucasian. I don't like that word Caucasian. I don't like that word European, because Europe, we ruled Europe for over thousands of years. You understand? I could be labeled as a European, one of the originals European. Even if you go back to the Grimaldi man, even if you go deal with genetics, let's deal with the SLC2485 gene, the gene that's responsible for blonde hair and blue eyes. This gene arose 6,000 years ago. Gene arose in Europe 6,000 years ago. There wasn't a pale person on the planet. There wasn't a blue-eyed pale person on the planet. And this is according to science. So that the SLC2485 gene and the SLC245A gene is responsible for these certain genes we see with these characteristics we see phenotypes in modern Caucasians. We know that gene was expressed on the global or even the population. We know that everything before that expression of that gene was dark skin with dark hair, dark eyes. It's science.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, that the blue-eye mutation actually came about 6,000 some odd years ago, and in the cellular family gene collection, the family of genes of that. But I don't remember the exact gene that caused it.
Absolutely, I see exactly what you're saying. So we're in agreement there. So I don't want to take too much time on there, but yeah, brother, you can get that information through oral traditions, through rituals, through customs, through the way we eat, the way we talk. I'll give you a perfect example. The black people in quote unquote ghettos, we talk slang, right? Ebonics. Like we would take a whole statement or a sentence and squash it and make it so little, like y'all mean. Like if I say y'all mean, I'm saying you know what I mean, but I said y'all mean. See, if I was to tell you no understanding of Ebonics, you wouldn't understand what I'm saying.
You're talking about noodles.
So yeah, this is what we do with language. This is how we trace our language, going back to the Gullahs of South Carolina, the Gullah Geechee Wars. These people being descendants of the Akan people who came over here during the transatlantic slave trade. These Akan people being direct descendants from the ancient Israelites who came from Israel, running from Roman persecution, went through Egypt after so many traveled, migrated through, and ended up in West Africa. We have the oral tradition, we have the history, we have the customs, the rituals, the practices, and the language. They still speak Hebrew to this day. Not what the Jews are speaking. What the Jews are speaking is Yiddish. It's a combination of different languages wrapped up in one and called Hebrew. So go ahead, my brother Kyle. If you don't have a
I was just gonna ask
my other brother if you don't have a if I cleared that up for you.
I know one Yiddish word.
Go ahead with your question, Kyle.
I was just gonna ask if since we're not speaking in terms of race, like with the African American thing, since that's off the table.
I don't deal with race. No such thing as race to me.
You think race? Okay, so
okay, cool.
Real quick,
that's where I'm going.
So race, you agree
I
is
like that
a social construct, right?
I like that actually.
Yeah, that's just.
But
yeah.
If I wanted to be a Hebrew Israelite, how would I go about doing that?
You can't be a Hebrew. That's like me saying, right? If I wanted to be a Chinese man, how could I go by that? I can't. I got to be born into. See, a Hebrew Israelite is not something you join.
How do you?
It's a blood.
Like just looking at me, how would you know?
Well, technically, the only thing
I can't determine it by looking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
can't
you do
determine that by looking at you. No.
Okay.
No. I don't deal with race. I don't say we're different races of people. To me, you look like a so-called white man. I say so-called because you look like the paper that's inside the clock that's holding the numbers behind you. You're pink. You're not white. So, or a shade of red. And I'm a shade of brown.
I was really red a little bit ago.
Ready red.
I'm ruddy. He's not ruddy.
Yeah.
I'm ruddy.
But wait, wouldn't you?
So there's a possibility then. The only question that I have is there's a possibility of a Hebrew Israelite.
Absolutely. We have Israelites that look like you, that appear to look like Caucasians, but in fact, their bloodline goes back to a Negro man on their father's side who comes out of Jacob.
Now, how do you determine that though? Like, how do you find that out? Like, how would I know that? How could I determine if I was?
Through looking at the oral histories, oral stories, the traditions, the customs of your forefather, the language of your forefather. Deal with linguistic phylums. Deal with linguistic phylums. When you deal with linguistic phylums and you start getting into languages and you start getting into long words, root words, morphology of words, then you could compare and contrast. Then you can say, wait a minute. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, pretend that I don't know my father, or I'm like I get put up for adoption or whatever. I'm trying to get to the heart of how you really determine if you are or not. If I knew nothing about my family and I'm fostered, I grew up adopted, how could I go about determining whether or not I was a true Hebrew Israelite? You know, if I know nothing about my family, so I can't go the oral tradition route. How do I find that truth?
Ancestry.com.
Well,
I'm kidding. Why not?
Like,
well, that don't work.
Okay,
I want to say something on that one. We have a chance.
But the spirit bear witness that you are. The spirit will bear witness for you, my brother. Like the scriptures told us, we will forget our heritage, language, nationality. So it's to say a person could be an Israelite but not know who they are, who their mother, their father, but that doesn't make their blood not their blood. It's just that you don't know who you are and where you come from at that particular instance due to circumstantial upbringing. You understand what I'm saying?
So the blood's what's important.
The blood.
The blood is what's
blood
important.
Is important.
Absolutely.
And just out of curiosity, who has the smoke alarm? I'm just curious. I'll send you a battery.
That might be me.
Place their battery in the smoke alarm. And by the way,
I don't hear anything.
I don't think Landon is a Hebrew Israelite. I got to end this soon because it's getting late and they yell at me when I'm doing this after like a certain hour.
But would you be interested in coming on our show sometime?
Absolutely.
To discuss this further.
I would love to. Okay. Yeah, no, like I said, right. I don't want to lump all Hebrew Israelites in the same bucket, right? I think that's an overgeneralization. So I'm happy when somebody like him comes in and they're articulate, they want to have an actual dialogue. I'm thrilled to death, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just felt a little moved because
I don't think you see on the video, on YouTube. You know, you just see the angry ones.
Yeah, I know that's the away scholarship. That's for people who just are YouTube scholars, should I say. They'll look on, just get a broad perspective about Israelites. That baffled me, always have. And a lot of these dudes who run around claiming Egypt, run around with unks, they do the same thing.
You gotta admit,
the same thing.
Dude, you gotta admit though, they have some really catchy wardrobe. I mean,
absolutely,
it's nice. I mean, I gotta admit, if they're gonna do like show tunes or something, but yeah, they put a lot of effort into that. But yeah, it seems kind of weird to me as well. But I did want to get Landon here real quick because I got to wrap this up, and so I want to say hi to him.
Absolutely,
he's not a Hebrew Israelite, I don't believe.
Hello, how are you doing?
Regular old white guy. But we are going to have a special hangout coming up here, maybe in the next week or two at the most. Landon and I decided that we are going to have a discussion and explain nuclear power and how nuclear power works. Ooh. And how the fast fission factor works and the resonant escape probability works and the logarithmic energy decrement per collision coefficient works and the six factor formula and all that fun physics stuff without actually doing a lot of physics.
Even talk a bit about fusion and uncontrolled reactions.
Yes, criticality, K effective, supercriticality, what all these things mean.
Sphere, radius, all those good stuff.
Yeah, what barns are.
Broadside of thereof.
Yeah, the broadside of the barn. So, what do you remember? Do you know what the macroscopic average? You know what the macroscopic absorption is? Is it compared to the microscopic absorption or the scattering coefficient or any of that stuff? He's gonna bring back some memories because he actually deals with a lot of stuff.
I'm not. I know that I am not a I know enough to know that I should not operate a reactor because I don't know enough.
Well, lethargy was defined as the, and we need to get Average Joe in here for this, but lethargy was defined as the average decrement per collision coefficient for amount of reduction of energy per incident. But basically, when you have a neutron going in, for everything that it hit, it would lose a little bit of energy. So basically, they're inelastic collisions, and that resulted in a thermal neutron, and that's what we call lethargy. Yep. But yeah, we're going to have a discussion on this, and we're going to actually show what a pressurized water reactor is, because people have been asking for this, and I've talked about it before, but I never really got into detail. But we're going to show what happens in the core reactor vessel, what happens in the pressurizer, why do we need a pressurizer?
And I hope we can also talk about some of the bad designs, like the carbon piles and some of those.
Yeah,
why it's a bad design, right?
See, I know the reasoning why Chernobyl was a bad design. It had a positive reactivity addition rate, and that's bad because
we'll talk about this. And
but I don't know how to effectively. I don't know the diagrams. I've never studied Chernobyl. I know what a D2G core looks like. I can do the core design, but I don't know how Chernobyl was designed.
I know about part of the human element of the failure in that.
Oh yeah, well I do on 3 Mile Island. Matter of fact, the guys in the control room for 3 Mile Island went to the same school I did. So that doesn't say much for the school that we graduated from. No, you know what happened in a real nutshell on 3 Mile Island was that because we looked into it, they basically overrode their computer, and they thought that the readouts they were getting from the thermocouples were not possible. They were thinking that they knew more than what the systems were telling them. It was a perfect example of human failure, because the system was doing what it was designed to do, and they kept on thinking that when the thermocouple got a certain temperature, I believe it had a question mark, and basically it was too hot for the thermocouple. They didn't know how to read it, didn't know how to put it into an analog number. And so instead of going, something not being right here, they just overrode every safety thing. The first relief valve would go. And the first relief valve is usually a steam valve, because steam is less volume, so you don't lose as much water in the primary coolant. So you always want a steam to release first and see if that works. If that doesn't work, then you have water relief valves, and that you have a more volumetric flow rate going out of it, so you have decrease in pressure, decrease in temperature. What happens then, though? You have flashover, and you have less cooling. So there's a lot of bad things that happen when these relief valves start going off. They overrode these things. They overrode their sensors. And so you had what's called a partial loss of coolant accident. But anyways, we're going to get into some of that stuff in a hangout, and I find it fascinating.
And so I think you'll learn maybe a bit about nuclear power and some of the issues around it, and the various forms of nuclear power. Because I know people probably someone is going to want us to talk about thorium reactors and about.
I don't know anything about thorium reactors. People asked me that before too. I don't shit about thorium reactors.
Pebbled reactor design and some of those other things too.
I can't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not I didn't study fusion. I know what a thorium reactor is, and I know what a breeder reactor is, but I would not be qualified to work on a boiling water reactor. Even that's how different it is. A boiling water reactor is quite different in operation from a pressurized water reactor, because you allow boiling to occur, and you also have the rods go in from the bottom actually rather than the top. And boiling water reactors have the problem with boiling water is that it doesn't have the same thermal capabilities as a pressurized water. When water is actually in liquid form, you have a higher degree of thermal transfer. So when you have boiling, you have like literally air pockets. Air does not conduct heat as well as water. So you have all these bad things that can happen. And I just don't want to work on a boiling water reactor.
Did you work on, or were you were in the Navy, right?
Yeah, I did my 6 years. I qualified everything you pretty much qualify on my boat.
So did you work on any naval reactors as well, or?
I worked on my first one was the S1G reactor core. I worked on for 6 months, and then after that, I was in the fleet, and we had 2 150 megawatt D2G reactor cores.
The Navy's record in reactors is unparalleled. There really are.
Yeah, because they force you to know every myopic detail. One of the questions they asked me from my chief engineer, the chief engineer asked me on one of my final qualifications. He asked me how many holes were in the pressurizer nozzle. Like that was of any relevance to anything, but that's how myopic they got. Because what happens is in the top of the pressurizer, you have literally a nozzle, like a shower nozzle, and it sprays. And the reason it does that is it atomizes, and so it produces this vapor of steam, a blanket that's called. And as the nozzle sprays open more and close, that blanket grows more. And what happens with the the pressure law? the pressure exerted on enclosed fluid at rest will be transmitted equally throughout the fluid in the walls of its container, right? So Pascal's pressure law states that if you have that blanket, if you reduce the amount of pressure in it by cooling it off, then you have less pressure in the pressurizer. So that's how we control the pressure in the actual reactor coolant. So he wanted to know that he actually asked that myopic detail: how many holes are in the nozzle? And you're never going to see the inside of a pressurizer, right? Because it's in the primary coolant loop. It's radioactive. But so when they say that they actually want to know the most myopic detail on a nuclear power plant, they're not bullshitting.
Did you know it?
Yeah, but I forgot what it was. It was like, you know what? It was a couple hundred something. I didn't know at the time. I actually had to go look it up, to be honest with you. It was one of my lookups, and so I had to go back to him and go, yeah, here's what it is. But whatever. But that's one question I do remember him asking very specifically. But yeah, you guys are going to be interested in that, or do we just bore the shit out of you? You guys always want to talk about God, but when it's something that I know a little bit about,
yeah, I mean,
I think that'd be awesome.
Learn how to make plutonium, learn about fuel reprocessing versus iso separation, all that good stuff.
I would love that. Like I said,
take yellow cake and turn it into
yellow cake's harmless, but I think people
grade. How do you take yellow cake and turn it into reactor grade?
I love yellow cake.
Well, you need centrifuges for that, it was called uranium hexafluoride. But
nasty gas.
Oh shit, yes, and weapons grade is a lot different. Matter of fact, what's funny is back when they had those 3,000 centrifuges in Iran, I believe it was, or Iraq.
Did someone say cake?
Yellow cake, and they found like high grade uranium enriched.
Oh, we're going back to this.
And then they're saying, oh, we're just using this for peaceful purposes. And the first thing I thought to myself is, there's absolutely no way you could convince me that you have enriched uranium to that degree that you're using for peaceful purposes, because that's not what enriched uranium's for.
The other thing to point out is that the first atomic weapon did not use weapons grade quality uranium.
It was a very dirty type of reactor, but it did work.
And in other words, if you want to cause trouble and make something go boom, you actually don't even need the what's called modern weapons grade.
Yeah, the reason being was the first bomb, the little boy. It was Little Boy and Fat Man. Yeah, so Little Boy was dropped in Hiroshima, August 6, 1945. Right, that bomb actually had a design that used uranium-235 such that you would have a round mass, and then you had a slug, and then the slug was through this linear thing, and then you had dynamite, literally dynamite. It was
a cannon.
Yeah, and so when the dynamite blew up, it shot the plug into the sphere, and it produced a critical shape that allowed neutrons that would normally be fly off everywhere and not actually be utilized by the fuel to be utilized for the fuel. And you had what's called a supercriticality event. Yeah. Very inefficient design.
It was designed by two people, well before the Manhattan Project actually started, but they were so confident about the design that they didn't.
But how much of that fuel was actually utilized? It actually was fissioned. It was a small amount.
The modern numbers are now around 19%.
That's even higher than I thought it would be, but it's still pretty insignificant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because that was a very inefficient compared to the Fat Man, which used actually plutonium, and plutonium was a soccer ball, and then they had it as an implosion device, so it all fired at the same time. The secrets, I can't divulge the secrets, but the secrets thing on when it comes to weaponry was not so much the design itself, but it was how to get the proper criticality shape in a very small period of time.
And you got to hold it. You had to hold it for approximately 85 to 87 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Yeah, it was, and then they would throw in, how they would throw like a tamper onto it, right? A neutron reflector, and then they would design it this way. Then the Urim teller type device, so you have a fission. But we can get that. We can get into that a little bit. I don't mind talking about that kind of stuff. But I got to tell you, the math behind a bomb, especially a fusion bomb, is. I looked at it one time and I said, "Fuck this shit." It was the most complicated thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It had no relation to the physics that I've seen when it came to a reactor. It was that complicated. Have you ever looked at that math? Because you're a mathematician.
Because I had a conversation with a gentleman named Feynman who was in charge of people doing the calculations for the baryospheric and then of course the Trinity shot.
Richard Feynman?
Yes.
What year was this?
I would have been.
We're telling you, he's the real deal, man. He conversation.
I try to remember which. I was young at the time. I think it was in 70.
Yeah, I was just chilling with Feynman, talking about nuclear stuff, and yeah. Okay.
That's not I can remember because I was down. I was down at Caltech, so it would have been 1977, probably.
I was 7 years old. So Landon and I are going to be talking about subjects that he used to talk to Feynman about. That's awesome.
Well, we were talking about the calculations, how you go about doing civic calculations back then, because they used they actually got a calculating machine from IBM to do some of the.
I've seen some of those old IBM machines. Oh my God, they were massive, and they were like a couple kilobytes of data. It was just ridiculously small amount of memory, but they were massive.
These weren't IBM computers. These were calculating machines.
Oh, just calculating machines.
Mechanical calculating machines. So. There, but anyway, yes, it's interesting. So yeah, nuclear power, and in fact, the physics today issue is about the threat and risk of nuclear weapons, which is another interesting topic.
I think it's a whole different topic, but I think there's something to be said there, because there's twofold. One, I believe that most countries have a very shit way of knowing what's in their arsenal. I mean, it's sloppy. It's absolutely fucking sloppy. And people don't know this, but my dad actually was in the Air Force, and he actually guarded. Good night. Good night. Good night. So he actually was around nuclear weapons, and back then on Guam, the rule of thumb was if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, it was shoot first, ask questions later. They didn't say halt, who goes there. They said you're dead. So sorry. That was his orders, standing orders. Is you see somebody that is especially when they were doing what's called ordnance loading, and they were taking the munitions and the weapons munitions. His orders were to kill anybody that was on that wasn't supposed to be there. So.
Hey guys, I just want to say I enjoyed the dialogue. I appreciate you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. Anytime, man. Yeah, you're more than welcome anytime.
What's the brother's name?
Landon.
There he is. Yeah, there. I had no idea you was the guy I was just talking to in the chat when you.
Oh no, I was having. I hope you didn't take offense. I was having fun.
No, not at all, my brother. Not at all. Nah, I'm very thick-skinned. Not at all.
No, I didn't mean I didn't mean to take the hide off your skin. It's just I always thought it was funny.
I'll actually add you to G+ too, so I could keep up with you brothers and tune in whenever you brothers doing this show or having a discussion. I actually like what y'all were just going into. I'm into STEM myself, so those type of discussions are very mind expanding. So I don't mind listening.
I couldn't agree more. I think that STEM is just. I wish that when I was in school, I was in mentally gifted minors in what's called GATE, gifted and talented, but we didn't have the STEM type it has now, and I wish we kind of did. I mean, it was there, but I think nowadays, like my daughter's in STEM programs, and she wants to move ahead in science, even though she really loves softball. But I kept trying to explain to her, you're not going to make a living, I don't think, as a softball player, but it's all right.
Right. It's the curriculums in those areas are very advanced, and they're evolving rapidly. How about I'll just put it like that.
That's the big thing of staying current, staying updated is hard.
What kills me is this: we have a collection of brainiacs that probably is better than in most other groups out there. And there's no question. We have some very, very intelligent, very, very, very educated people. And I keep telling my daughter, you're missing out. Your math, you're about a C+ right now. You need to pick it up. And we have people that are willing right now. I know people that are like, let's go on a hangout, talk about math, come in and join us. But she's like, I'd rather go play softball. And it's just, it's a little disconcerting, you know?
Right.
Because I would like that.
It certainly is one of the, the languages that many or that give you tools to try to understand the universe, and it's
and I want to do more math hangouts. I want people to do math hangouts. I want to learn more. I want to get back to where I can. I mean, like I can't do a matrix thing if my life depended on it, but I had matrix theory. You know, but I don't remember how to do row echelon, Gauss-Jordan elimination. I've done it at one time.
Connor Kerr method, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but come on, Landon. Let's be realistic here. If you haven't done any of that shit in freaking 20 years or whatever it's been, I forget it, right? Because I'm not a mathematician. I learned it, I used it, I forgot about it.
It's like any tool that if you don't practice at it and keep it sharp, and it'll
You're right, but I would fascinate if somebody wanted to do a hangout on it. So we say, hey, let's do let me show you how to use Kramer's rule. Let me show you how to do an inverse matrix or just simple matrix row column manipulations. I'd be okay with that, especially in a set of linear equations, right? Because people hear that term linear equations and they get all freaked out, and yet most linear equations are probably not that hard to solve.
Yeah, it's interesting also to see how mathematics is taught in various places around the world. It's not, it's taught, it's taught in a different way in a number of different places, and some of them are more effective than others, in my opinion. But it is an interesting thing that how mathematics is taught.
Oh, it sucks in America. It sucks in America.
I think depending on the environment of the people you're teaching, the environment they came up in, their ideologies, things of this nature, you would teach it in a way that those people can resonate with. Like if you was to teach children, you would use colorful things. You would probably use apples, oranges, but you wouldn't use that same method of teaching an adult.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So in certain places, they'll teach a different way. So whoever their teacher can grasp the concept in their worldview or world perspective. You understand what I'm saying? So they'll draw lines in the sand.
For that.
Go
Sure.
ahead, King.
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. I think that there's something to be said for not one size fits all in a pedagogical type approach for education. I even think there's, even for a heuristic method, I think it's fine if you're trying to relate a certain concept. I think that you can take some liberties. And, when I was in nuke school, one of the first things that they said going in when you're at the very beginning, says, look, you're not going to understand this. It's accepted right now. Later on, you understand why. And it's just, there's not enough time to teach you all that needs to be taught. But they like you, in order to even move ahead, you have to make certain assumptions that we're telling you is true. And then later on, we'll kind of explain why. And I think math's a lot the same way. You kind of are told certain things in math are true, but you don't know the proofs behind them. Right? I mean, we know the square root of like 2 is irrational, but how many people can do the proof for it?
All right.
That's one of the most beautiful proofs, I think.
No, it's a great proof, and it's not that hard either. But how many people think about it, right? Or even something simpler, like you have, like you just a basic parenthetical group, a plus b, and you have it squared. What's going on there? And when you actually put it out there and you actually show that the binomial expansion, and you actually do it graphically, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful how you could take a single line or something and then you graphically make it a square. And anyways, I find it fascinating. I think math is
another thing. We call that sacred geometry. Basically, we call that sacred geometry in the 5% nation of gods and earth, which I was a part of. Everything coming from the square, including the circle.
You could actually, I actually found you can actually have a square circle, and it's called taxi cab math. But anyways, so what? I'm not kidding. There's math. Go look it up. Taxi cab square circles. but it's a linguistic kind of thing. But I think, yeah. Have you ever heard of that? By the way, you're a mathematician. Landon, have you ever heard of taxi cab circles? Or is that going to be something new to you? Because if I gave you something new, my job is done.
The taxi cab circles. Is that are those the approximation?
Your job is done. He's never heard
aren't
of
they?
it.
Aren't they the approximation polygons?
Yeah, what it is, yes. Taxi cab geometry is basically you're taking Euclidean distances and you're kind of halving them and you're kind of approximating.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, okay, he's close enough. But,
yeah, he's familiar. I see.
Oh, dude, he's no fucking joke. I keep telling people he's like in the top 20 smartest people in the world. Okay,
but I don't know everything. That's the kind of thing. One of the things I'm also I think in terms of teaching math is it has to do with the attitude of the teacher and the expectation of the teacher to the student.
Yeah.
That's critical in terms of, does the teacher respect the student and expect the student to be able to do well? There was one of the places of the education system I'm fairly familiar with is what happened in South Africa, particularly in post-apartheid South Africa, where schools began to be integrated, and you found teachers that would look at various students and have expectations where they had been taught, let's say, at home mathematics because they weren't allowed to go to let's say a certain level of public school, or they were taught in local schools, but they got to go to a more advanced school, and there the teachers had expectations based upon the type of student as to whether or not they were going to do well or not, and that turned out to be a major factor on how the student did. So, in other words, if a teacher thought a student was incapable of doing math, it was much more difficult for that person to succeed than someone who they thought was capable.
Yeah, you know what we could do? Well, like I said, I do got to end this in about 5 minutes. We should just do a let's talk about math with Landon. No, I'm not maybe on this. Yeah, maybe on this channel or the other channel, the Great Debate Community channel, because we used to have math hangouts, and of course, I'm not a mathematician. I'm a utterly lay person in math. I actually not even that good at math, but I enjoy it. And what I was trying to do is show that even myself, who's been out of math for years, that's not great at it by any stretch of imagination, can at least relearn it to the point where they can understand a little bit. And that was the whole goal by doing my presentations on the Great Debate Community channel. But I think if we had Landon, we could do something like, we go, okay, let's pick something in math. Like I didn't even get to integrals. I would love to get to integrals,
Yes. And the thing that about mathematics is,
I studied integrals. I didn't get them on the Great Debate Community.
Is that it's a more exact way of expressing something. it's why, for example, science uses a lot of math, because something like the English language or French or German or whatever has, while it can be poetic and beautiful, it's also imprecise. And if you're trying to be precise, or you're trying to be and say something, communicate something that's complex, mathematics can give you an ability to communicate, certain types of ideas precisely.
That's right, especially when you're speaking in coding languages. Secret societies do. They speak a language and they'll say things in languages that has numeric value. And if you don't understand the numeric value behind the language they're using, you'll be lost in translation. So I find that to go on a lot within the Hebrew community, dealing with the Fibonacci sequences and things of this nature.
We could do something on that too. Yeah, I would love to talk about things like the Fibonacci sequence, or why it is the Mandelbrot set. We were gonna do something, and we need to is pi normal number or not? And I find that to be interesting if pi is normal or not, and I don't know why. And I think Landon thinks that he thinks it's normal. I'm not convinced of that, but I would be interested in just seeing if it's normal.
Come on, Steve. What I said was that it is conjectured that pi is normal.
Oh, it's conjecture. Okay, that's true. You did say it's conjectured as pi is normal.
But it's not.
What's your professional opinion, if you don't mind sharing?
I would be surprised if pi was not normal.
You would be surprised if it's not normal?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. But why? That's why I want to have a hang on it. Why is it so difficult? They've determined other numbers are normal or not. Why is it so difficult in pi? I don't know enough about the topic to know why that distribution is so evasive in that particular, decimal expansion.
Well, remember that normality has to be in all bases that are rational.
All rational bases, sure. Mm-hmm.
All rational bases, because I will, there's the snide part that points out that pi and base pi is 10, right? So pi and base pi does not repeat; it's 10.
Yeah, it's terminating. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the question about normality is not only rational bases rather than transcendental bases, but also then that all the sequences in that rational base occur with equal frequency, and that's a very high order to prove. And the best that they can do is to construct numbers that way, as opposed to proving that existing value is of that property.
Well, we're just going so off topic here. So, what is your preferred method for number construction? Dedekind cuts or Cauchy or?
Dedekind cuts is a good way.
Okay, Dedekind cuts. See, you're going to have to explain to me Dedekind cuts better, because I still have a hard time wrapping my head around them. Cauchy even took me a long time to understand. I for some reason have this epistemic limit about a Cauchy sequence, even though I understood the concept, right? But demonstrating it using epsilon was very difficult for me. Why is that? Why does did you find it easy? Do you think Cauchy sequences is easy to do? Here I am asking the best.
So now you have to remember. I have to go back and remembering when I was exposed to it. It was something that I grokked, but I remember having learned Dedekind cuts. I was saying, so what's the big deal about Cauchy sequence? Why do I have to do another proof? I was at a level of a lack of maturity in mathematics where so once something is proven, it was like so what. It took me a while to appreciate, when someone goes and proves the fundamental theorem of arithmetic 37 different ways, that's a beautiful thing, as opposed to it's a waste of time.
Well, let me ask you this. This is kind of a mathematical joke, and nobody else going to get it. But are you one of those mathematicians who think that once something is proven, it's now trivial? I mean, I think it's funny, right? I think that's a funny joke, right? Because to me, trivial, something's trivial is has a very simple solution like 0, or that a trivial proof would be something that is inductively, very, very, very simple, right?
Well, I mean, after you do the proof and you say QED,
but at that point,
and you use the joke, well, QED means quite easily done, right? Even though it might have taken you months to get there.
Sure, yeah. So it becomes trivial at that point. I'm thinking that going. Yeah, but I think that's kind of an equivocation area of the word trivial, but that's why it's a funny joke. But anyway.
Yeah, that's it. But the thing about, I can think about, a lot of, there's a lot of mathematics that the proof may become obvious, but to find the proof is an extraordinary journey. Right? Okay. That's the thing that, because it's one thing to say I can lead you through, the proof of let's say Fermat's last theorem, but the journey to get there is even more difficult.
I find that they have to actually create mathematics to actually make these proofs. But one last question: if you could solve one thing, would you take the Riemann hypothesis or P, or not, or P equals NP?
I would think that the Riemann, pretty good that if you gave me the extended Riemann hypothesis, that would be to resolve that, or to know that, would be, as a proof, would be an amazing thing to do, because there's so many things that are depending upon it. You would be
the most famous mathematician in the world if you could find. Now, the way I understand that, we probably should have it for another hangout, but the way I understand the Riemann hypothesis is that there are trivial zeros and non-trivial zeros, and that for the Riemann, and I say Riemann, you say Riemann?
Riemann.
The Riemann. I say it again.
Riemann.
Yeah, the Riemann zeta function for the negative integers form trivial zeros on that criticality line.
Yeah, it's the negative integers, the negative even numbers, right?
The negative even numbers.
Negative 2, negative 4 down the line.
Right, and so if you could determine the non-trivial zeros, for the primes. I mean, I don't know how it relates to everything, but I'm told by every mathematician that if that was solved, it would translate into so many different other things. Yeah. That's what I like to know, because I know what the hypothesis is, but I don't know how it just magically makes everything else so much more easy to figure out.
And certainly the relation to prime numbers, complex analysis of prime numbers was a really surprising relationship in mathematics, and that's one of the things why that thing became so famous. But there certainly are much harder problems to try to tackle, and there's a gentleman I had the pleasure of working with several times, a guy named Erdish. And Erdish was the most prolific mathematician of all time in terms of the papers and things that he published. Erdish said that the Riemann hypothesis would be solving the Riemann hypothesis would be a good warm-up exercise to trying to solve the Collatz conjecture.
Which conjecture is that?
That's so many different conjectures. That's the one that says if the integer is even, you divide by 2, and if it's odd, you multiply by 3 and add 1. And you take the
I think I have seen that one.
And
before.
You take an integer, you say do integers greater than 1 all lead back to 1, or is there a value that goes off to infinity, or a value that cycles and never reaches 1?
Yeah, I think I have actually seen that.
And that's
all right.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying I'm about to go on out. My bad about that, brother.
No problem.
I'm just saying I'm about to go on out. What you were saying was just some real stuff. I got to get up. I'm gonna leave you brothers now. And plus,
I don't want to.
It's too good to stay, man. Words like that give me a stiffy, and at my age, I can't afford to wait.
Don't go wait till you get stiffy at your age.
So, I'm gonna go to call it a night, brothers, and I enjoyed you, brothers, dearly.
And again, I hope I would ignore offense. I enjoyed your all caps text on there. Keep at it.
Absolutely. Till later, brothers.
All right.
Have a good night, Shu.
Right. Absolutely.
Check on something real quick.
So as I say, the thing I think that some of these problems, knowing the thing that the reason why I picked even the Riemann hypothesis is that it would unlock a number of tools that is there. Although I did spend some time searching for non-trivial zeros off the 1/2 line, found none, of course. And I did also, try my hand at that area, but I was not as good at analysis as I needed to be in order to.
How about now?
It still is. It's a specialized branch that a number of people are making good headway on. Unfortunately, it's notorious for even relatively smart people saying, "I think I've solved it," and people say, "Oh, you missed this spot, you missed that spot." I mean, it's a notorious for false proofs. And in fact, there's an expression, at least at the West number 3 conference, that says, if your result implies the Riemann hypothesis, your result is wrong. If the Riemann hypothesis implies your result is probably correct.
Well, real quick here, by the way, first, I'm going to continue this for a few minutes because I want to talk about something real quick. But Mac, isn't this awesome?
Yes, this is awesome.
I've been dying to get in here for the longest time.
Yeah.
In and think of all the shit you've been exposed to tonight.
Yes, it's been a lot. I've been watching you guys since December.
Oh, I know. Dude, I have dozens of people that message me all the time, and people in the community don't even know who they are because they don't interject themselves. And gotcha. I'm always trying to get new people in. So when I do, I find it fascinating. But real quick, I have somebody in the live chat, and people may not know this, but years ago, like 4 years ago, the math problem that really got my goat, it started on Facebook and some other places, but it was that whole 0.99 repeating rule was one thing. And so I would go on videos like Singing Banana and Weihart and try to explain with people, with another friend of mine who's now working on his PhD for mathematics, why 0.99 repeating equals 1 using numerous different proofs. I mean, we used the geometric proof, we used the calculus proof, the algebraic proof. I mean, there's just multiple different proofs. And so I came up with 4 questions to ask somebody that if they do not believe 9.99 repeating is 1 is true, then I would ask them this question. Now, I have never asked these before to you, Landon.
Okay.
I want you to look at them and see if you think these are legit questions, the way I phrase them.
All
and
right.
this is 3 years old, so I'm not going to change them now, even if you disagree. But
Please.
and remember, I'm not a mathematician, so this is all pulled out of my ass. Okay, so I will screen share you. I'll screen share this 1 sec.
And I will go and get a glass of wine.
Oh, you dirty dog!
Because I mean, this isn't quite rum and coke night, but you know.
No, I'm having a little bit of.
I know that somewhere in there.
Margaret. You know what? I tell you what. Before I do this, I'm going to go refill myself with a little bit of brandy. I haven't been drinking that much. I've been like that much in. But you guys want to continue on? Because I got 6 people watching, and I got maybe a half hour before I got to call.
All right, so give me. I have a few minutes.
I talk to myself in the back.
So
Literally,
I can use an aerator there to make rude sounds while
Sure.
I'm aerating my wine. Because
I'll be right back.
This is something that cork sniffers, as Red Eye calls us, do. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
I can hear it.
So this is aerating the wine, and it's a quick way to get it to a much more fuller flavor.
Mm.
And this particular some wines really do well with aerations, others don't need it. And this particular red wine is there. Look at that beautiful color.
Oh wow! You said that was red wine?
Yeah, this is red wine. This is the type of wine it is there.
Oh, okay, Zinfandel.
All right, and so it's a from Lodi, California, old wine Zinfandel from Norma Ranch, and it's called Outrageous is the name.
Nice.
This one is a 2016.
This is actually a creme brulee with coffee, a little bit of water, and brandy.
Wow.
It's quite tasty. I was using milk before, but I didn't have any more milk, so I decided to use water. But it's actually not bad. It's just like a coffee with creme brulee and then brandy is for flavoring. Flavoring.
I usually do I have a vanilla brandy and I mix that with root beer.
Oh my god,
not quite as fancy, but
that would be great for rum and coke night too.
That would be great for rum and coke night. Holy crap! All right, so let me screen share now. Get rid of the donkey porn. 1 sec.
Ah,
I know. Sorry,
Buzzkill.
Monetization stuff. YouTube is really fickle about that.
Can you even say donkey porn?
I think you can. Yeah, I think you say donkey porn. All right, so can you see my screen now?
That effect.
Can you see the video?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this is some singing banana. He's a mathematician. So this goes back to 3 years. Okay, so let me
Okay.
All right, let me blow this up so you guys can actually see it. Okay. Nope, too far.
Too far.
All right. So let's look at these questions one by one as I would ask somebody, and then I'll go through my Twitter feed or my what's it called? Live feed here. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
so do you want me to read it or do you want to read it?
You can read it. Yeah, read the first one and tell me, like I said, if it makes sense. I wrote these myself.
So all, by the way, it's in all caps. All rational numbers by definition can be expressed in the form of a ratio of 2 integers, p/q, as q is the set of all p divided by q, such that p and q are relatively prime, and p and q are integers, and q is not equal to 0. So what he's just said there, by the way, is all rational numbers are the division of 2 integers where the denominator is not 0. And he also makes sure that p and q are relatively prime. So it's not like if you have 2 and 4, you'd reduce it to 1 and 2. Okay, since 0.999 ... is rational by definition, as well as all repeating decimals are rational, it has to be able to be expressed in the form of p divided by q, which is the ratio of two integers. If 0.999 ... is rational by definition, what is p divided by q equal 0.999 ...
Is that a legit question to ask somebody?
So you say, since 0.999 ... is rational by definition, you are presupposing to understand that all repeating decimals are rational.
Right, which is the case, right?
Yeah. But and it's true. I should say they have to understand that, right?
Right. I'm assuming that the person has a little bit of understanding, but like the person who is in the live chat who's saying that 0.99 repeating equals 1 is not true, I would ask them this question then. Okay, well, if 0.99 repeating is by definition rational, meaning that it has to be able to be expressed in the form of P over Q, what is P over Q? Now, I would answer 1 over 1 or anything, 2 over 2 we basically should have it obviously simplified. So 1 over 1 would be P over Q that equals 0.99 repeating. That's the integer ratio.
Yeah, because when you're saying P comma Q is a member of Z, the member of the integers, you're also stating that P and Q are finite.
Yes, of course.
And that's people need to know that's. So you're not. So what you're saying is, hey, 0.999 ... has to be rational, and if it's rational, then it's you can express it as division of two integers that are relatively prime, where the denominator is non-zero, and therefore, what's the problem? Now so someone would sit there and say, have to go back and say, yes, 0.9999 is rational.
Yeah, I would assume they have to. Yeah, I mean, if they want to argue that 0.99 isn't rational, then that's a whole different argument. And then obviously that goes by definition. At that point, they're actually arguing again against an actual mathematical definition, which I don't see the point of that. I mean, if you're going to argue that mathematical definitions are wrong, then you're not doing math.
Yes.
So, Mac, what do you think? Do you think that this makes sense?
I think I don't even remember how to do algebra.
You just need to agree with me. That's it.
Yes.
So by folks, what you can state again is that any repeating decimal is a rational number, can be expressed as a division of two numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And so the fact that 0.999 is repeating means it can be expressed as a divisor of two numbers, right?
Correct. Sure. So is he even paying attention in the live chat here? It doesn't matter. We're going to continue these anyways. But Time Lord, come on, Time Lord. Here's says, thanks for taking the time. Seriously, I appreciate hearing the thoughts. Yes, it is the same definition argument that happens in so many areas. Well, no, it's not. Math is not. You don't do math by arguing definitions. That's not how you do math, right?
Yeah.
I mean, math, you kind of go in with, okay, these are the definitions that mathematicians use. I want to play in their ballpark. Then I will be, using them. Now, if you want to be your own constructionist and you want to do your own construction mathematics, that's perfectly fine.
If you're a logician and you come up with a different axiomatic set, more power to you.
Wildberger does that all the time. I mean, with his whole rational trigonometry, right? He creates his own shit, but at least he has a reason to. He's a non-finitist, right? Yeah. He doesn't believe that even rational numbers are a thing. That's fine in his paradigm because he's making an actual framework using his own axioms that works.
So I want to actually talk about that, but in a moment. Yeah, why don't you read number 2 since I read 1?
All right. So what number 2 is saying is that 0.99 repeating is equal to the limit as k approaches infinity of the summation of 9 divided by 10 raised to the nth, where n equals 1 to k. That basically is the long way of saying that as the sequence goes towards infinity, and what a sequence is 0.9, 0.99, 0.999, 0.9999 at infinitum. As that sequence, as you approach the limit, that limit is going to be 1. Yeah. Now, the difference between a sequence and a series is that a series is going to be 0.9, 0.99, 0.999, but the sequence, I have it backwards, don't I? The sequence, the sequence is 0.9, 0.09, 0.009, 0.0009. That's the sequence, right?
Sure. And so, but another way of saying, folks, is you know, when you see 0.9, that's 9/10. When you see the second 9, that's 9/100. See, the third 9 is 9/1000, right? And so we're saying it's 9/10 plus 9/100 plus 9/1000.
That's why it's 0.0. That's why it's 0.9 plus 0.09 plus 0.009.
And that's a sequence. If you sum that up, that's a sequence that approaches 1.
Right. Because what happens when you take 0.9, you add it to 0.09, you add it to 0.009, and you keep doing that, you're going to approach 1. I mean, that's just the limit of the sequence, right? So what I'm saying here is that because the limit of the sequence of that is equal to 1, and also the fact that the limit of the sequence, as k approaches infinity, is a summation of n of 9 divided by 10 raised to the n, n equals 1 to k equals 1, then both 1 and 0.99 have the same limit, because 1 equals also that same thing. 1 equals the limit of that expression as well. They are equal to the same thing. So if 1 equals to the limit of the sequence is 1, and 0.99 repeating is also equal to the limit of the sequence, which is 1, then you have to say that they're equal, because if A equals B and B equals C, then A has to equal C.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, it sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking to an actual mathematician here, so I'm letting him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now,
and remember, I'm not a mathematician. I suck at math, so don't take me as.
So in other words, what you're saying is, as if you, this is different than the first argument, which was it's rational, but you know, what is the ratio? Well, it turns out to be 1. The second one, you're saying as you add more and more digits, that value approaches 1, right?
Yeah.
Now, the third one, you say, well, okay, let's say they're not, you know, let's say
this was
1 minus 0.99999.
Yeah.
Is
this
X.
is more of an informal proof by contradiction, even if it's not a proof, but it's.
You know, infinitely small values are not allowed in reals due to Archimedean properties. So infinitesimals can exist. Please give me the real value of X, right? So in other words, you're talking about that difference, right? And the problem is that by number 2, the difference, you know, X is, as you add digits, the value of X approaches 0, right? Just like the other sequence, the limit approached 1. The difference between 1 and the value approaches 0 by definition.
Now I do accept that 0 can be construed as an infinitesimal in R. However, due to the Archimedean principle, it could be the only infinitesimal in R. So.
Okay, and so the fourth one.
Oh well, do you want to go? I mean, do you want to explain the Cauchy sequence about why? If they, so some people think that it's 0.000, or excuse me, 0.000 ... would be the difference between those two numbers. But the problem with that is that 0.000 ... is non-constructible. You'd have to use a Cauchy sequence. By the way, that word is Cauchy, not Kachi, but I do know that much. That using epsilon is greater than 0, you have to construct it in a way that I know, obviously, you know.
See, so the problem you had is you lost me when it said 0.000 ... right? That's, I mean, you're treating it as a. There you're trying to treat things beyond the infinite sequence.
No. You're reading it incorrectly. I'm saying if you claim that is the case.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That number is a nonsensical number.
Okay.
I'm not an idiot.
Thank you.
That's my whole point of the second part. Is that saying, look, if you're claiming that is the difference, then you need to be able to construct 0.000 ... using a Cauchy sequence. It cannot be done. That number is not a number. There's no such number as 0.00 ... It's nonsensical, because like you said, you can't have 1 after an infinite decimal expansion. There's no position for it.
Okay, good.
Okay. Whew, had me worried there.
Okay, so go on to number 4.
All right, number 4. So the trichotomy property is basically saying that the relationships between X and Y are such that X is either less than Y, they're equal, or X is greater than Y. There could be no other options. It's a trichotomy, 3 things. So if X does not equal Y, then there exists X plus Y divided by 2. That means that in the reals, there has to be a number that you can take for X and Y, add them together, divide by 2, and get another number.
In other words, you're saying if you have two values that are not the same, there must exist a value that's in between.
Exactly, for the reals.
Yeah, at least one. In fact, there's an infinite number.
But to come find out, there is an infinite number between them. Right, but there has to be at least one. But
if they're not the same, value, then you could construct an infinite value of things between them.
So if I have x equals 1 and y equals 0.9 and repeating, what is x plus y divided by 2? If they suggest that they're two different numbers, that number is 1. So if x equals 1 and y equals 0.9 and repeating, you add them together and divide by 2, you get 1.
Yeah.
So. Oh, that was fun.
So with mathematics and truth.
QED, by the way.
Yes. So there is I remember there's a pragmatic answer. What is a mathematical truth?
Mathematical truth is something that is analytically correct based upon whatever axioms you're using.
Yeah. There's a pragmatic answer that says it's a statement that's accepted by the vast majority of math departments in accredited universities around the world. That's a...
Well, I mean, I get the joke, but it's funny because, I was just listening to this on the place, and we just had this discussion not too long ago, what it means to be a fact and what it means to be true. Mm-hmm. And again, it gets into philosophy, right? Because I think a lot of people really have a hard time thinking what it means to be true, what it means to be a fact. And people have their stipulative or their idiosyncratic means of defining these things, which are fine. Everybody can do their individual, but it really boils down to what definitions you want to use.
But that statement I made that was slightly sarcastic,
but
there's some practical value to it, which is at what point did people accept Weyl's proof of Fermat's last theorem as true? And it was when the vast majority of people capable of understanding the proof read it and said, yes, this is correct.
Yeah. Right? Because only a handful of people can understand it.
But, I must say, the number of people that have grown to understand modular forms, and that was one thing I had to do, was modular forms are weird, and you had to really understand modular forms to begin to understand its proof. And once you understood modular forms, then it was relatively...
Which conjecture was it that Israeli mathematician got? He actually invoked like Ricci flow and a whole different new type of mathematics. It wasn't that long ago, and he got the $1 million award.
You're referring to the Poincare conjecture.
The Poincare conjecture.
I might be butchering the pronunciation.
Poincare. I'm not French, but that's the Poincare conjecture. He actually turned down the $1 million for that.
Well, there's a problem with this that he had a particular beef to his advisors who didn't respect him, and so he sort of wanted to sit there and say, "Well, you didn't trust me and believe me to give me my or accept this paper and degree, so screw you guys." He had there's some resentment in there in terms of how he was treated.
Well, he showed them up, right?
Yeah. So in that sense, but it's sort of like it grand tradition of checks from Erdős, right? Erdős would put out, rewards, and if you solved a problem, he'd write you a check. And no one in the right mind would ever cash one of his checks. One, because he didn't have any money, and two, because they're much more valuable having a check. Having Erdős say, yes, your proof is elegant and it's correct. Here's a check. That was much more valuable to you academically than the value of the check. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but like I said, how many people knew that type of mathematics to even be able to determine whether the proof was correct or not?
Well, there's now, I would say
at the time
that there were 2 to 3 dozen when the proof was
okay. That's not a hell of a lot, man.
And now I would say that there's probably something on the order of 1,000 people that understand the proof, right? So again, what is mathematical truth, right?
I'm on board with
that. There's that. So I don't know how you call it, but there is that pragmatic answer. Is that statement
there's
as
accepted reality? There's accepted something that is a true, but facts are the same thing, right? We all know that facts are tentative in science. Facts are provisional, and so when you say something like along the lines, let's say you do subscribe to like correspondence theory of truth, and you say a fact is what corresponds to reality. Well, that's fine if you want to accept that type of theory, but of course you run into all of them have problems, but you run into the problem is, well, what happens if something doesn't correspond with reality, and how do you make that determination if it corresponds with reality? You know, if I say Superman can fly, is that true or false? Because there's no comporting to reality. There's no such being as Superman.
Yes.
But worse is when you say things like, you know, the ocean is the ocean is blue when the ocean is blue. Okay, that's a true statement. It's a tautology, right? I mean, the ocean is blue when the ocean is blue. But I'm a color realist. Colors don't exist to me. So is that really still a true statement that even still it's a tautology that the color the blue?
Well, it gives it the context because someone who's colorblind might not even accept that the ocean is blue.
But we're not talking about perception, right? We're not talking about whether they can perceive it or not. We're talking about what corresponds with the reality. So let's say the sky is blue when the sky is blue, right? It's true. But is the sky really blue? Because if you're a color realist, you hold to the position that colors don't even exist, and that's a phenomenon that only exists in the brain. So everything that you're talking about when it comes to truth and facts and all these things are really contingent upon how you want to look at it based upon your theory of truth, your theory of the world, theory of justification, theory of knowledge, all these different theories that go into it. And yet people think it's so black and white. Oh, a fact is just what comports with reality.
Yeah. So in the case of, for example, in mathematics,
question.
Go ahead.
Oh, we got a question. I love question time.
And this might be a dumb question, so I don't know.
No dumb questions. I'm not gonna lie to you, Mac. There are some fucking stupid questions.
All right. So, would it be relative to say that colors do exist because we can read them with spectrometers and not just human perception?
And let me explain to you why that's a no.
Okay.
When you're reading a spectrometer, or when you're actually taking a measurement, what you're doing is you're reading the energy level of photon. So if I say that blue is a specific nanometer, and I think it's around 400, 500 nanometer, whatever it is, then I'm going to label that to be blue, right? But I'm only measuring the energy level of the photon. The phenomenon itself, right, is only existing in a brain state. The color we see only exists in our mind because our mind is taking the energy level of that photon and processing it in a way that makes it visual to us.
Worse than that, if you see a blue piece of paper, what your eye is seeing are the photons that are not blue being absorbed.
Right.
And the photons that are blue being reflected. And you're only seeing the photons. You're actually not even seeing the paper.
Yeah, when we start drinking, we get deep, people.
So,
and I've heard that.
But you know, in a case of like a mathematical, in a case of mathematics, you know, one question you might ask is it possible to discover anything? You know, and a debate that was had.
Okay,
what I discovered was so-called discovered one of the largest known primes. Did I discover it, or was it always there, and I was merely the first person to prove it was prime?
Yeah, so this goes back to the whole, is like math discovered or is it invented?
What do you mean? So explain what you mean by that. That's an important statement you just said.
If mathematics is something that exists that is contingent upon reality being such that like, for example, let me try it this way: Platonic realism, mathematical Platonic realism. Those geometric shapes exist in a actual reality. They're the form that exists. And when you say that you discovered something, that means that you have found something that existed all the time. That's going to be there regardless of whether you've discovered it, somebody else discovered it. It's there. It is not contingent upon you existing or anybody else existing. Yeah. Okay, so if you discovered a Platonic form, that Platonic form has always existed. But when you invent something, you have now invented something that is unique, that wouldn't have been in the realm of reality unless you had existed. Now, it's a subtle differentiation, and one could argue that even invented things, because of potentiality, always existed in some state in a futuristic type thing. But I tend to look at it as mathematics is invented. I think that is a human construct rather than something waiting for us to.
Let's take, for example, you discover a new largest known prime. That value is prime, whether or not you discover it.
Well, the discovery of the math
can be said. Yes.
Yeah, the discovery is different. I mean, if I say I've discovered a new prime, is different. But if I invented the mathematics that allows me to do it, I've invented.
Now, D.H. Lamer took the Lucas sequences and constructed something called the Lucas-Lamer test, and he discovered the how to use Lucas sequences to show that 2 to the n minus 1 was prime or not. Right? That was something that he appears to be the first person to ever do this, right? So now that truth was there before he discovered it. But you could also say he invented this method of testing.
Yeah, I think the method is the way to go. Like he invented a method, right? Look at when we have mathematics like we have in a regular decimal system, we understand that an alien race may have a mathematics, but it's not going to be the decimal system probably. It's not going to be. It can't be exactly the same as ours because we have to develop a mathematics with axioms. And at one time, certain things didn't exist. 0 didn't exist under mathematics at one time. It was added in later on. I think the Arabs added it, right? So we can't assume.
Or 0 was there and it was discovered.
Again, dun 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 dun.
I mean, I'm asking. What's
I don't. It's such a philosophical question, right? Because I mean, first of all, you're not a mathematical Platonist realist, right? You believe in Platonic forms. You don't think numbers actually exist in some abstract reality, right?
I'm trying to understand your question.
A mathematical Platonist thinks that numbers have some kind of reality unto themselves.
No, I think numbers are independent reality. Right? There's a lot of, because there's a lot of stuff that mathematics in fact, that's one of the beauties of mathematics is that it isn't contingent upon reality. You can invent math, you can come up with mathematics that is just as unreal as it can be. For example, maybe reality only has a certain number of dimensions, but you can invent, dimensional spaces that are, 10 million dimensions, and it's just as mathematically valid as a three-dimensional space.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. Now we're going to go deeper than we have been before. So deep. If that's the case, right, and you want to posit that mathematics is independent of reality, then when it comes to logic, I maintain that logic is a necessary precondition for the universe to exist. I believe that's a necessary precondition for intelligibility. And what I mean by logic, I mean that there has to be some kind of basal form of reality such that if I say even the law of non-contradiction, or the law of excluded middle, especially the law of non-contradiction, if something exists and can't exist at the same time, right? And something that is what it is, law of identity. So if there was a time where those logics didn't hold, if there was something where you could exist and not exist simultaneously, or that something didn't equal itself, how would a universe exist like that? Because you have infinite regress of problems. You would have a trivial case where you would have P and not P equaling each other. And I'm not talking about like the law of, what's it called? Explosive. When you have principal explosion, right? I'm not talking about principal explosion. Because when a principal explosion is when you say that if you allow contradictions such that P you can equal not P, then you could prove anything. That's the law. That's explosion property, or principle of explosion, isn't it? That what it's called? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I allow though that P and not P can equal each other, then I have no universal thing to even stand from. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to even put it forth a narrative where you have a reality where those.
Though, aren't you really saying that axiomatic system is silly or ridiculous or useless?
No, I'm not saying it's silly. Matter of fact, it's kind of funny because I've actually had people posit God, and God created the laws of logic.
But here's
think about the problem with that. If God created the laws of logic, how did He exist prior to the laws of logic? Because existence itself is predicated on the laws of logic existing. It's a necessary precondition for intelligibility. So if the laws of logic didn't exist, God existed and not existed simultaneously. the problem. You see what I'm going with that?
Yeah. So Mac, you were going to say something?
Oh, there I just said ding, ding, ding. But
okay.
I was going to say, let me bring it back now because we went past it just a little bit. Is math something that we invented or discovered?
Right. I think people discover mathematics, and I mean, I'm guessing this to be the case. But one of the things that my advisor and I had debate over was the relationship between mathematics and reality. And I was, it would remind me that the universe does not ask my permission to do what it does.
Right.
Which was a statement of saying, well, I would come up with this, this model, and I come up with these mathematical things, and say, well, the math says blah blah blah, and my advisor would say, well, but the universe is what it is, and it doesn't have to ask your model permission to do what it does. Your job is to try to model the universe, not the other way around. And so it's the notion. Now, I think what Steve is saying is that the universe is rational, right? That I think that's what you're implying.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that. Yeah,
but the thing I worry about is that mathematics knows that it's limited, and I don't know if reality has that same set of limits.
Well, I don't know if it's not so much I think it's limited. It's just that rationality, I also think, is a precondition for intelligibility. If you can't rationalize the universe, then you can't understand the universe. And the fact that we can understand the universe means that we are able to rationalize it.
Yeah.
Because I think that...
is rationality things like that the universe is consistent, that the laws of the universe are invariant?
Yes. Yeah. I mean... I think
what he's saying is, in mathematics, you it's not useful to have an axiom where 2 + 2 = 4, and then sometimes it's 5 when the spirit wills it, right? It's their mathematics is what it is, and the same thing with so-called laws. We construct a universe assuming that those laws are equivalent, throughout the universe. Now, there may be problems with boundary conditions, but that's another story.
Can I say, just to get it out what I was thinking, that I think we discovered what's measurable with what we invented. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we invented the instruments, and we invented how to read them, how to interpret them. And we also make use of the mathematics to interpret those measurements.
Yeah.
I mean, astronomy is a good example of that, where we can take photons, or now gravitons, and interpret. So we have these fine instruments that can collect, like telescopes that can collect photons in exquisite detail, and we then use those measurements to then infer properties of the universe.
Yeah, matter of fact, somebody keeps asking, they've asked me before about my foundationalism and why did I accept reality as an axiom. And again, I'm not married to any of these positions. I think it's a mistake to say there's one perfect, theory of justification, right? I don't think that you have to continually ascribe to a single one. You can, think that foundationalism is good. You can think coherentism is good, but I just like foundationalism because it's simple. And I know a lot of people aren't big fans of it. Okay, fine. Well, I find problems in all of them, right? Mm-hmm. But I take reality axiomatically as existing, and because I do that, then I can actually make observations in the universe and say, okay, I presuppose the universe exists, and I also presuppose by observing the universe, I can make predictive models from it.
Right, because this is where we seem to function. So this is where we need to figure things out.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad approach. Again, I'm not married to it, but it's just it works for me. It's simple. But again, it goes to the fact that are you willing to accept brute facts? I mean, do you accept there could be axioms that you cannot justify? Do you accept that the principle of sufficient reason doesn't hold? There's a whole things of narrative that goes into forming an epistemic framework to makes it be coherent. And I'm still refining mine. I ask, people all the time. I'm constantly asking Ozzy and Alex and other people and the great reputy, help me get a good, solid epistemic framework. And I don't think any of them's perfect. You're never going to get a perfect one. But I rather have more rationality than less, right? I mean, I want the more possibility of at least being a rational framework than an irrational framework.
What does the incompleteness theorem do to your view of the universe?
Refresh my memory on incompleteness theorem. Is that like well-ordered theorem?
This is the notion that any set of axioms complex enough to describe the number line are either trivial, incomplete, or inconsistent.
It sounds like Gould's incompleteness theorem or something.
Yeah. It comes from
the way I understand incompleteness theorems, for example, like I'm trying to.
So it says the vernacular is mathematics, axiomatic mathematical systems are limited. There are truths that you will not be able. There are things that you can't prove, right? That are outside of an axiomatic system, or things that the axiomatic system contradicts, or the axiomatic system is trivial.
Yeah, well, again, I think that goes to the Gould incompleteness theorem that you can never use any system of axioms to. You can never completely prove everything in a single system of axioms.
So, what does that do to your view of this view of reality that you have?
Well, it doesn't change it because I'm not trying to prove reality exists, right?
And no one disproves that number theory. No rational person would say that number theory is
affects
false.
Reality, right.
But the question is, if an axiomatic system is inconsistent, incomplete, or trivial, then what does that say about the axiomatic universe that you seem to imply?
Well, but I'm not structuring the entire universe as axiomatic. Okay. I'm structuring that one thing as an axiom, just like Pino's axioms. Right. I'm not. It's just a way to understand the universe. I could be completely wrong, although I think there's problems when it comes to things like brain in a vat. I'm sure you've read Putnam's arguments on limited constraints about using linguistics to show that we're not a brain in a vat, or Wittgenstein's narrative. Are you dreaming? Well, no. If I was dreaming, then this conversation would have no meaning anyways, and therefore it's a self-refuting question. And so. If reality isn't real, if that axiom is wrong and everything else follows is wrong, okay, so what? It doesn't change the fact that I'm still trying to formulate a rational framework given those axioms, just like I would do mathematics. And you're right, there is no one single axiom set of axioms that can prove everything or be self-consistent. But I'm okay with that. I mean, it's like you have to bite the bullet somewhere.
Sure. Could there be phenomenon that is not describable by physics?
Yes, I think there is. I think there could be. But it's a hard thing because first of all, I'm not a materialist, right?
Okay.
At best, I might be considered to be a source physicalist. Have you ever heard that term?
No.
A source physicalist is somebody that says that matter came before conscious. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter whether you're dualist or not. It doesn't matter whether you think that mind-body connection is different. It just means that in order to have consciousness, you need to have mind first. So source physicalism is that physicality comes first, then source. Consciousness is an emergence property of that, right? Now that goes against, I guess, they thinking, God, right? Because you're like, well, if you're a source physicalist, then you must not believe there's a God. That's granted. I'll bite the bullet on that. But again, there's no one set perfect thing out there. I just tend to source physicalism to think that it's more likely that the physical came before the mental. But a phenomenon, there might be a phenomenon out there that cannot be described by physical means. I don't know of any off the top of my head. But the question is, can you give me one? The question is it possible?
Yeah.
And if you're a Platonic realist, then maybe, especially because wow, we are some deep shit when we drink.
but I'm about 2/3 of the way through my wine.
So I'm getting there.
So where
this probably makes no sense to anybody, but that's okay. I'm having fun.
So what do you think, and what do you think in terms of time? Is there a beginning for you? Is there a beginning of time, or did time always exist?
Okay, this goes back to the question of what's called reductionism versus Platonic time. And Platonic time is really the fact that time exists independent of the movement in the universe. And the way we look at time, and I could be completely bullshitting right now, who the fuck cares? But the way we look at time is the displacement of objects in the universe. Something has moved, something has changed in the universe, such that we can say time has lapsed.
Causality is a big important element.
Causality. But let's say there is no causality. Let's say that the universe is temporally stasis. So there is no change anywhere in the universe. Okay? The Platonic person would say that there is no time passing because there's no unit of measurements we're using to determine time passing. There's no absolute measure of time in that case.
Yeah. In other words, to have a clock tick, it has to change state. If nothing is changing state, you have no clock. You have no time, is what they're saying.
Right. And the reductionist says, you know what? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The universe as a whole, even though nothing is moving in it, nothing's changing, time still passes. Now think about that very carefully, though. Which one's right? I mean, there's actually an experiment that they could theoretically do to determine, but it's really strange and complicated, and I don't fully understand it. But I've read an experiment on this. But think about this. If you're saying time is something where it happens regardless of movement, and you stop all movement, then you're literally saying that time is contingent upon change. And usually we say, okay, the time arrow is the change of entropic state. Yep. So as you go from low entropy to high entropy, that's time's arrow, right?
Yeah.
But if nothing has changed in this universe, can you say that time's changed? And again, it's a different approach you want to take it. What would be your view on it? Do you view that time is contingent upon something actually physically changing in the universe? Or if everything remained in stasis, would time still pass? Or would it be irrelevant?
I think time would be irrelevant, but it would exist. You could. The problem is you wouldn't be able to measure it, right? If you can't measure it,
maybe, you know what? Like I said, there's an experiment I'll send to you.
But I mean, I was thinking if the universe could not change state again, it reached some stuck state, there would be no way for you to measure time.
All right, let's say that it's okay. Granted, you wouldn't be able to measure it, but that doesn't mean that it's not changing. It's not passing.
I avoided your question by
answering. But okay, look at this. What happens if the entire universe didn't change, but a single pocket of molecules were moving? So it didn't affect anything else in the entire universe, but that single pocket was just moving around, doing its own thing. But you know what? You never noticed it. You never saw it. You never were able to tell that little pocket was changed. To you, time hasn't passed, but time clearly has passed then to that little pocket. So in the universe, time has changed, but does it to you?
Cool. Practical purposes, if you're unaware of time passage, then it doesn't matter, right? When you lose consciousness, you're asleep.
You're dead. I think you died every night.
Before you were born, you had no awareness of time passage, but time still passed.
Right.
So I don't think that the fact that you can't measure time doesn't mean that time.
Well, then you would be more of an absolute timist, though. You'd be more of a reductionist. You would be like, you know what? Time passes regardless of whether I'm able to perceive it or measure it or not.
But I don't know in the case of, because there's explanations for the singularity that may have preceded the Big Bang, stating that the Big Bang created time and space. Right?
Yeah.
That's one cosmological model. Right?
Yes.
Another said that that's where it started, right?
Yeah, so I'm going more where it started because hear me out here. We agree that the universe has a time direction, right? And we are arbitrarily saying that is between entropic states. Prior to the Big Bang, there could have been a universe that had a different time arrow, such that entropy went from higher to lower. So even though I agree mathematically, it makes no sense to before the Big Bang, right? If it's just a nonsensical phrase. But that doesn't mean there could have been a universe prior to ours. And I know that sounds like a kind of a contradiction, but if you really look at the cosmogony of it, it's not so far fetched. But it really goes down, like you said. Does the Big Bang create the time and the space, or is it the start of the time and space? Because usually the Big Bang is only the model after, obviously, the initial conditions for the universe existed, and I think it's after Planck's time, right? 10 to the negative.
Yeah, because that's why I talked about before the Big Bang event started, right? What was and even if that phrase makes sense, did the Big Bang event create time, or was there or did it start time?
Which
and the question is what experiments could you come up with, if any, that would distinguish those two?
The problem I think we run into, again, I don't know why you talk to me on this stuff. Like I have a fucking clue on any of this stuff. You have no idea how much I pull out my ass. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong though, but we can only see back to the point of the recombination period, such that photons were all, being mixed around because they weren't able to go out because there's such high temperatures that the electrons had not combined with protons yet, and so you had this opaque sea of particles, including photons.
Well, let me be careful here. That most of what we can see, the earliest photons we see, come from the big flash event, the 378,000 years after the Big Bang. But there are other things that are prior to that we can, for example, detect, such as when helium went neutral, which was before hydrogen went neutral. We can see the signature of that in the microwave background. And if Bicep 2's data about
was that before recombination?
Because helium recombines at an earlier stage. It's a higher temperature.
So helium recombined prior to the hydrogen.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to look at that.
I would have thought the opposite. Because
the way I understand it, during the recombination period, not the reionization, but the recombination period, when there was when they went neutral, when you actually had neutral formations of atoms, hydrogen, that's when the photons could be released, and that's when we see the cosmic microwave background radiation. As soon as there was able to be a neutral charge on that, and that was when, I mean, how could you have helium being produced when you have +2 protons and +2 electrons before you have +1 proton, +1 electron? Now, you might be completely right, but I need to wrap my head around that.
But isn't the ionization of helium higher, or am I wrong?
Well, we're not talking about ionization. Just means that how easy it is to strip the electrons away.
But that temperature is going to tell you, if it's a higher temperature, it's going to say that.
So you're saying as the temperature lowered, the ionization for helium was such that it could join with the electrons and protons to become neutral before the hydrogen did.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now, am I wrong?
You know what? I have no fucking idea. I told you I pull a shit on my ass. No, you know what? It makes sense. I mean, I think you're right that helium probably has a low ionization potential, but I don't remember the recombination being described like that. So,
someone will actually go and correct me on that thing.
Who would think we'd be talking about this shit at 11 o'clock at night with Landon Knoll?
But the
it's 2 o'clock here.
I mean, the recombination set of helium, I think it's around redshift Z equals I think it's redshift around 6,000 as opposed to 2,000, but so the other thing that another phenomenon that may be apparent that came before it was the thing that Bicep 2 is trying to look, which is the polarization of the photons prior to their last balance, right? The detection of gravity waves is a pre-recombination event. But again, these are very limited things that we can tell. Of course, the other thing you might say is the existence of protons and electrons are phenomenon that occurred much earlier in the Big Bang process.
Well, and same when you had the gluon soup, right? So look at this. What I was trying to say though, no matter where you want to place that limit, right? If you're going back 300,000 years to the recombination period or before then, there's still a limit of how far back we can see, no matter what kind of technology we use. You're right. Visibly, I don't think we can look past the recombination period. But if you're right, if we want to use, okay, there's something we can use with other things when protons were first formed, or better yet, if we can go back and look at the gluons forming, right? Because you can't have, I mean, how hot do you have to have a state to have free gluons unbounded?
Yeah. Pretty
it's
hot.
Unimaginable, those Planck scales, right?
By the way, the redshift for helium combination is between well, there's a helium 2++ electron plus corresponds to redshift around 6,000.
Okay.
And the helium with electron, single ionized helium with a single electron. So the double ionized helium with a single electron occurred at 6,000.
So
redshift, and single one was at 2,000, and the recombination of hydrogen was at 1,100.
That makes sense with ionization potential. But here's my question: why did the hydrogen form at all before you? I mean, if you just had free protons, right? You're now having 2 neutrons and 2 protons that in a +2 ionized state, they're going to be floating around there too, and then all of a sudden it's going to cool down, and then you're going to get 1 electron, right? So you'd have +1 state, and that's going to happen before a proton will take a single electron. Is that what it's saying?
That's what it looks like.
I mean, that might be true. I don't know the ionization potentials, but it seems counterintuitive to me. But welcome to science, right?
Yeah, this is part of the Big Bang nucleosynthesis stuff you have to look at. I think what people confuse is that Big Bang flash, which produces the cosmic microwave background.
Well, no, hang on. It wasn't a Big Bang flash. No, wait. It wasn't a Big Bang flash. It was the recombination that caused the flash.
Well, the
Big Bang didn't flash. Matter of fact, you had inflation.
The term is the Big Bang flash, right? It's not the Big Bang. It's the flash that occurred after.
I got you. Okay, the Big Bang flash was the photons leaving from the recombination.
Yeah, that roughly 378,000 years afterwards. Gotcha. But there's phenomena we can measure that occurred before that. What that flash period, that flash event did is limits our ability for line of sight measuring the photons
in the visible
in the visible. Yeah. Well, actually, period, right? That their photons get messed up prior to that, but we can see the primordial hydrogen, primordial helium, primordial lithium are examples of things that occurred before the flash. The gravity waves and the effects that gravity waves have on the structure of the universe occurred before the Big Bang.
Well, that's what I was saying. Our lower bound visually would be the time of the recombination, but if you're going to use gravity waves to peer beyond that, that's impressive.
And that's part of what BICEP 2 is trying to do. BICEP 2 is looking at the last reflection of photons before recombination.
And was that affected by how they scatter?
Yes, it's a polarization and scatter and polarization that is being affected by the gravity waves.
Do you think that affected later on the large scale anisotropes in the CMB?
That's what people are looking at to try to understand. The model suggested it did.
Don't get too bored here, Mac. Like I said, I'm pulling this completely out of my ass.
But
I'm not bored
right now.
You know what's funny is I kind of do sound like I know what I'm talking about when I really don't.
So the 2 times before, when I was at the South Pole, they had just collected their data and they were drinking a lot to celebrate the fact that they thought they essentially had discovered the gravity waves, of the early universe. The problem was that they didn't take fully into account the potential effect of the ionization of the, for example, the Milky Way and space, material in space that may have imparted on it. So the way they're fixing that is that there are multiple wavelengths now that they're scanning the microwave sky with BICEP 3. It's going to have has multiple, and if they're merely observing the effect of the interstellar medium on the photons, then the effect would be one wave for different frequencies. But if it turns out that they can know that this reflection, this polarization, exists over a wide range of frequencies, then they can rule out the fact the interstellar medium is
so that means it would be caused prior to the recombination.
And so this would be direct measurements of, and really you can think of these things as essentially the sound waves of the early universe, and looking at the fundamental tone of the sound waves of that.
Oh yeah, I definitely think that gravity waves could be used for that. That's why when gravity waves were first discovered, I was like, this is going to revolutionize astronomy.
Which, by the way, so this time the people that were there at the South Pole were under the measurements were underway. They say they're collecting good data, and they hope in 3 years to be able to look at their findings to see whether they confirm or refute the previous set. But so far, the fundamental tone appears to be 71 octaves below B flat.
Wow, that's pretty freaking low. People are still out. People are asking. They're not talking about mythicism anymore. They're talking about cosmogony.
But still, it's a matter.
I don't get a chance to talk about this kind of stuff with many people. So I mean, especially being the true layperson I am, I'm thrilled when I actually can have a conversation with somebody.
But did you guys see Beach's question?
What's that, Mac?
Did you guys see Beach's question? She just put in the chat.
No, I'm hearing gravity waves. Is this gravitational waves, or are there two types?
Oh,
gravitational waves.
You're right. There is a difference between gravity waves.
Oh, there's a difference between gravity waves. A gravity wave is actually more like a bow shock.
Yes.
And
I
so
should have said gravitational waves. So I apologize.
We're being sloppy. Sorry,
but thank you for catching us, and kudos to the who caught us on the.
That was Beach Price.
Beach Price.
I know the difference as well, so I take responsibility for that. Waves. We knew about gravity waves long before we knew about gravitational.
So it's gravitational waves.
We're using
and you win the prize for catching us.
Yay!
Way to go! Hey guys, I'm gonna have to
on that.
Say what?
You had one job. You should have call us out on that.
I should have, but I hardly know the difference.
Well, gravity waves you'll find in plasma physics a lot.
Oh, okay. You can find it in weather phenomenon.
Yeah, weather phenomenon. Anything dealing with fluids, stuff like that, you'll find gravity waves.
But it's gravitational waves. So thank you for catching it. And kudos again. Who caught me?
That was Beach Price.
Beach Price. Yeah.
So you just called out one of the smartest men alive. So good job. He's gonna find you, and he knows how to do it too. He's got connections.
Hey guys, I'm gonna go to bed because I have to be at work in 8 hours.
All right. The next time we're going to be talking about spontaneous breaking of symmetry when it comes to the Higgs mechanism.
Yeah.
For how long?
I need to know more about it. It's something I've been trying to research.
So here's something about that's back in terms of truth, right? Is back. We were.
Good night, Mac.
Good night.
We were talking about truth, and the value of education, it could be said, is not to learn facts, but to appreciate discoveries. So when I went, as undergraduate in college, and we were talking about cosmology, the big debate is the universe open or closed? Right. And a lot of what was being discussed, we know was not really spot on, and that the thing, the world was dramatically different, right? Did that mean I wasted my time learning stuff? No, because when for example, the cosmic background image, from Kobe came forward, I could appreciate the significance of that. When you had the discovery of the accelerating universe that came forward, my education permitted me to understand and appreciate the significance of that. It's not that you go to school to learn truth. You go, first of all, to learn how to learn and to learn how to appreciate what's discovered.
Yeah.
I don't know if that be something you agree with, or
no, I agree with that. Because look, I've already said that scientific truths are provisional, and you can go and you learn all that you can for the information we have at the time. We already know going into science that information is going to be useless 10 years, 20 years in the line, or at least to the point it's going to be changed. I shouldn't say it's useless, but there's going to be some radical differences. That's why people that are in the scientific fields constantly have to read up on the literature, right? Because things are changing dramatically every day. And even
but it's rare that when science says, "Oh, we were completely wrong," it was this rather than that. It's more a greater understanding, right?
Yeah, I don't think they really even say. Yeah, it's very few times the science go, "Oh God, we really had fucked."
But it turned out that the open-closed universe debate was a false dichotomy.
Yeah. Oh, it's flat, right? I mean, it's flat and closed. I thought if it's flat, it actually indicates a closed universe because it actually has like a I don't know, kind of diverges like that.
But the accelerating universe says that it's not closed, right? Closed would mean that it would end up that gravity would win, and we would have the big crunch after the Big Bang.
Oh, you're right because universe acceleration would be an open.
So it's worse than open. It's now
infinitesimal. It's infinite. It just expands. But the reason it's weird is at the same time, if it's open and it's flat, doesn't space-time still have to be created at some ongoing process?
Yeah, but then there's also that nasty era of inflation.
Well, inflation was, but that was like at the very beginning of like the first micro whatever seconds of the Big Bang.
Yeah.
Inflation, and that was, I thought, was only to resolve the cosmic event horizon problem.
Sure, but also if the bicep 3 data holds up, that's going to give really strong evidence towards the existence of inflation.
Yeah, people want to know I'm a flat universalist. You're a flat universalist.
Yes. That we think that space-time within experimental error is flat. 6
sigma. That's pretty
which
damn
is
good.
pretty. So the question is it mathematically flat? Right? Is in fact the flatness? Well, what do you mean by flat? Well, in 3 dimensions, it would say that parallel lines never meet. Right? That
definition.
Yeah. That would be one property of flat space. With sort of space time, you're not going to have time loops where the end loops back around the beginning, that sort of thing.
You can't have a closed time loop.
No, you can't have a global time loop.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, obviously, if you don't have Euclidean space, if it's all non-Euclidean, then the concepts of parallel lines are meaningless anyways. You cannot have parallel lines.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as parallel.
So one of the questions is that is flat space an actual property, or did it just happen to get close to flat? That's
well, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the difference is the initial part of the inflation period, right? If there was major changes taking place in the constants, the fine structure constant, and other things in the universe, the variable, we'll call them the natural units, like gravity, G and C and Planck's Planck number and Planck bar and all those natural constants. If there's major changes in those, would we not expect to see bigger differences now in the flatness? Because it would be so much time has passed that
sure.
any change that we could wasn't constant back then would result in a huge amount of change in the local geometry. Now, I do think the local geometry obviously is flat because 6 sigma is pretty damn good. It only takes 5 sigma to even announce for a new particle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when they say we are 6 sigma confidence, you might as well say we're damn sure.
Yes. So. But it really is. It'd be interesting to know that whether or not flat is actually an intrinsic property of space.
Yeah, that's again when that goes back to philosophy though. What does it mean to be a property? I mean, do you subscribe to like universals? Are universals a thing?
Or is it a law, right? That it is, or does it happen? Does it in a mini universe multiverse model? Could all of the universes that ended up with positive negative curvature ended up destroying themselves, and it's only the flat ones that survive, or flat within so many sigma?
Wasn't it? I think it was Carroll or somebody that had I put it out there that one part of the fine tuning argument that first of all the amount of space time dimensions we have, this is the only one that's stable. Mm-hmm. But isn't it like the same thing? Maybe if in the multiverse, you could hypothesize that they have different mathematical constants, but it could be argued that none of them are viable.
Yep.
And this is the only one that is viable. Again, I got the Cosmic Landscape here somewhere, and I gotta finish reading it. I barely started it, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for it because it was a gift. And thank you for the person who sent it to me. I know who you are, and I appreciate it immensely. But I haven't finished it yet, and I got to. And then I got to get a hold of Susskind, and hopefully maybe talk him into coming in using you as a media intermediary. But I'd love to have more discussions like this.
Because the notion of like singularities is something that the question is: are they mathematical constructs, or are they or is there reality?
I think they're more mathematical constructs.
I would be surprised if they were reality.
Yeah.
And this was something that this was the discussion I was privileged to have with Hawking, was over whether or not you could have something that was close to a singularity but not a singularity and still see the phenomenon that was there.
Mm-hmm.
What we thought, one of the conclusions was that there certainly could be experiments done to try and determine, theoretical experiments, if you will, to determine the difference between a rotating black hole that was a singularity versus a finite-sized black hole that was not a singularity.
Yeah, because you obviously have your Kerr-Newman, you have your Rostrum, you have your basically all these different ones are basically you have if I remember correctly, you have three things that for any black hole. You have mass, charge, and angular momentum.
And say again, third one.
Mass, charge, angular momentum.
Yes.
Rotation. And so depending on what type of black hole you have, whether you have a charge, whether you have a rotation, they're labeled different things. The simplest one, if I remember correctly, was oh my goodness, Schwarzschild black hole.
Yep.
I'm not looking anything up here. So Schwarzschild black hole is basically, if I remember correctly, non-rotating, non-charge black hole. Then you have Kerr-Newman, which I believe had a charge and rotation, but I don't remember the exact ones. But I do remember that you could never have a naked singularity. You could never have a singularity that existed without the event horizon. But in certain cases, if the black hole exhibited enough angular momentum and charge, the event horizon would actually split. So you would have a external, well, I shouldn't say external. You have a inner and you have an outer event horizon.
Yeah, but if you spin it up, you could get the poles coming down and
it flattens, and then you have I think it was at the equator. You have a small amount of divergence in the event horizons. But I think it was Penrose that hypothesized that given those conditions, it would actually result in a toroidal singularity.
Yes. And
back then it was like, oh, hey, wait, we could pass through this shit. Years later, I come to find out that if that was even the case, any photon or anything that went through it would cause it to be unstable, and you're going to die long before you get to that point anyway. And it's very going to be very, very small. In fact, the wormholes, listen to Susskind when he's talking about the quantum entanglement between two black holes that were existing at one space at one time. And then you have the entanglement of the singularity, such you have a bridge between them, the EPR type bridge, that it would only be on the quantum level anyways, and it's highly unstable. So this narrative that we can use black holes to transverse the universe, I think
I don't think it's and in fact I think wormholes are probably mathematical curiosities and that don't exist in reality. And the biggest problem is that so we're looking for wormholes. We don't see any evidence that the universe has wormholes.
I mean, maybe at the quantum level, but I mean, again, like even Feynman pointed out that the quantum level, antiparticles move backwards in time, right? So
yes.
At the quantum level, you could posit a lot of weird things, but
yes. So we didn't, the thing that Hawking and I, that I left the discussion with Hawking was, we don't yet have the astronomical measurements to be able to determine whether or not black hole is a singularity or another compact, a very compact object.
Right.
And there's the models. There's there are models, but those models don't dictate what the universe does. There are conjectures, but those again don't. It's really just a line of argument and not necessarily based upon actual measurement.
And then one of these days we'll have to talk about the firewall paradox
on there. So
I don't know how we end up at like all these late hours at 50 people watching. Me and Landon talk about freaking cosmogony. It's just weird. It's just weird. But anyways, I got.
By the way, I hope everyone has taken a look at the Gaia second release Gaia data. Tell you about this.
Yeah.
Gaia is a project by European Space Agency to map the galaxy, and they now came out with a map where they've released the very fine positions, velocities of now 1.7 billion objects in our galaxy. It's the finest map we have now. 1% of the luminous objects in the inner galaxy have been mapped to exquisite precision and velocity. In fact, they can start running stuff forward and backwards, and they can start to move like to the Hyades cluster or to the Pleiades and look back at our things and have a real idea about what the three-dimensional space looks like.
I'm fascinated by that. The fact that they can map that many objects and know the actual proper motion of each of them. I mean, the amount of detail they have on stars is mind-boggling.
So this particular is the Gaia spacecraft. They just released their new data, and so it is it's now, you can actually now download this data, and again we can look. One of the things that people are looking at is make comments about how the galaxy formed. We can watch, for example, even like the small and large dimension of the cloud, and see proper motions inside those objects now.
Wow.
In terms of how stuff is moving, and details, direct measurements of distances to other stars, of course.
So what created the first angular momentum? The prime mover. No, I'm kidding.
That's an interesting
cause. No, actually, it is a legit question. I mean, what is the first proper motion with the universe? But
yeah, so
we're gonna wrap this up. But oh my God, the live chat. They're not even listening to us. They're just like doing their own thing in live chat, which is fine.
Good for them. Good for them. But as I say, so we now have 1.7 billion positions, brightnesses of stars. We have about 161 million stars. We know the surface temperatures on 1.3 billion in terms of colors, parallax and proper motion about 1.3 billion. Radial velocity in terms of sky at about 7 million of those things. We can look at radius and luminosity of over 75 million objects. It's going to be you'll be able to get really detailed three-dimensional maps of our galaxy and nearby objects.
I think how many of those have planets.
Yes,
and it's just we know we have discovered thousands and thousands of exoplanets.
So look up the Gaia catalog, and there's a lot of science discovery that is coming out, looking at, so you can start to see, large populations start to see, for example, how evolutionary paths or of things like white dwarfs, right, and how they're those things are progressing. it really is an extraordinary data dump that has lots of particular stuff. And again, it's a thing which has exquisite instruments, that's scanning the entire sky. It's not just looking at one spot. It's an all sky map down to very, very fine details. These
real quick, somebody says, Landon, tell Landon, Lucifer says your penthouse is done.
Yes, I had a wonderful time conversing with Lucifer. I believe it's the same Lucifer. Well, actually, probably the only one Lucifer, but we were this was in Discord, and we were having a discussion of whether or not atheists could encounter Lucifer or not.
Yeah, I think I heard about that. So I try to watch some of the Discord ones. I don't get a lot of chance. And thank you, by the way, Bully, who runs the Discord right now and broadcast those. Those are awesome conversations. I don't get to listen to all of them, but anyways, let's call this one a night. And
well, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure.
And don't leave once I hang up.
Okay. And we'll have to do our nuclear power.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to thank the live feed though. They hung on in here for 4 hours, some of them, even though they weren't listening to us. They were just chatting. But thank you, Grandma Nazi. Appreciate it. Hana and Beej and everybody else. This was fun. I don't get a chance to really talk about these topics too much, and I know so very little about it, but I'm fascinated by it. So, and Raisin Girl, to you.
Hey, Raisin Girl, yes,
love Raisin.
Amazing person. I assume Red Eye is out there, probably lurking somewhere.
He was earlier, but I think he took off, and Luna was here too. And, but I can't get Luna over to come in. Damn. All right. Good night.